Test 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2.
time I was here for a board meeting, none of that was there. It was further back, there must have been at least 60 chairs in here, and it was all filled. So I wanted to be sure that I had a seat. So I got here at 5:30. And,
Well, you got to see.
I got a seat, and I got the one I wanted.
Right.
Are you Kelly or
I'm Nicole.
Nicole? Okay, so you are you are Johnny Acosta's daughter. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize that the first time you called me.
I'm expecting to memorize my next one.
Yeah, who was I, oh, I think I was talking to Mickey Valdivia. And he told me, and I said, oh, geez, I think I heard her first.
They didn't do it.
And I think I had Johnny for sketch too. Okay. It's some real good conversations with your dad.
Yeah.
I remember one place in particular, and it was on fire. And he came up, and we were just sitting on it because, you know, there's a certain point where you just, what you call containment, you just sit, you let it burn, otherwise you gotta mark it out. And he and I had not a long conversation, but about 15 minutes. It was in regards to the, I think this was the, but it was the Martinez. And that was very hard on your dad, bench butter, particularly. And Jan Leach. Jan really had a hard time. I remember I was working, I was teach during the day, and then I came and covered the station so that the paid staff could work with the FBI and so I ran all the calls from actually Mr. Jones let me leave because I had my sixth grade class, last two classes were PE, so they just messed up PE classes, and I would show up afternoon, and I would go until it closed down, which was Johnny about midnight. And I ran all the calls. And I did that for, I think I did that for 6 days before we finally closed it down. You were probably too young to remember any of that.
I remember it. I think I was about 3. I think that's why it's home, especially James
And it's funny how things happen, and I mentioned this to your dad, and I mentioned it to Ms. Wurtz. I was kind of losing my my empathy for people in general, and particularly for teenagers. And I've been teaching for quite a while at that time. I think I'd already been teaching for about 30 years. And we had the thing up at the Stewart Park, you know, and I was standing there in uniform and everything, and I couldn't go with all the kids over there, and they were from all over, just to show by their running jackets. I mean, they came from Indio, Canada, Temecula, Colton. I even saw one from Oakland, you know, and all these kids were in the park. And I thought, wow, that's something. And they were right near the end, and they were getting ready to pray. I was standing there, and 2 young girls came up to me. And I was thinking, okay. And when it was over, I just kind of looked at them, and they said, we just wanted to let you know, we know that it's really hard on you policemen right now. It's really she was here, right?
She was here.
Okay. Did one of the girls work here?
Yeah, for a little bit.
That's nice. I saw pictures of Dwayne, and it was just the other day on Facebook for somebody else's thing, and it was, he's, and had hair. And I said there, I go, wow, Dwayne, I never thought that it was, his wife and my daughter were very close. Like my daughter was supposed to be in the wedding, but she had to back out because she was 7 months pregnant. And she just thought, she was, I'm 7 months pregnant. And Karen said, hey,
Yeah, there's no.
well, it's not that, she just, the results, bigger than everybody else. And, and she was the other girls who look so great. And they're, so she has Karen. But, well, I'm a grandpa. I live over in Sunlight now. Yeah. Me and my wife went to RV a lot. Well, we didn't this year because of the coronavirus. They're kind of glad we did because the apple fire, and it started right there on Tree Lane. Well, that's where my son lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That fire was about 250 from his house and burned to within about 100 feet of his house. But he took his first vacation for 10 years, and he was up in Oregon. And I was going up and feeding the dogs and feeding the goats, and I couldn't, he wasn't even here.
Oh.
And he called me on the phone to tell me that one of his girlfriends was going to be up there, and she'd feed the animals. I didn't have to go. I'm like, yeah, great. I was going to go up in about 3 hours. And I looked out my window and the car was smoking. And I said, oh, geez, they need a big fire in Cherry Valley. I got on my laptop and coded in Brookside County Fire. Apple fire. No, it's apple tree. And it was the worst experience I've ever had. I've been to 1,000 big fires. And, but this was the first time that I was there, that I was in a fire truck or a,
Right, he's a civilian.
I couldn't do anything. In all these years, I've seen other civilians, and I always had empathy for them. Felt sorry for them, but well, I never realized how they felt.
Right.
Well, I felt that day. Those 2 dogs were in the house and the goats, and nobody there. Turned out some people made it. It's just a chance, but as a teenager, my granddaughter and my grandson. Took a chance to learn. Actually, turned out, my son, 9 days before he left on vacation, totally took his credit on with his tractor. Totally got rid of all the vegetation around his house. Now his house sits on it, about a half acre. And, but he got all that done. And I remember coming up and telling him how proud I was of it. I was, although the place next to him, he didn't have any problem either. He's an Los Angeles fire captain. He wasn't even home, he was on vacation. And, but he talked to my son about different stuff that we got today, nature. And it came within 100 feet the other direction. But all I could see was that one place across that was going up. I don't know, Steve, I thought for sure it was this place. And so, like I said, it was the worst feeling I've ever had. That was supposed to start at 6.
There's still a study session.
Oh. Is there only going to be 2 of them here tonight?
Yes. You'll see their faces.
Julio's at home, huh? That's kind of what I get a chance to see. I know when I talk about with my two grandpas, everything's a history lesson. Just gosh, everything's a history lesson. I can bring out, you know, hey, the sun's shining, and she goes, anyhow, so she's never gonna be a teacher. And, long story short, she's a teacher. And, you know, would she be a teacher? I said, I'm sure, you know,
How are you?
Fine, I get it.
Good. I think I've met you before, haven't I?
My name is Gene McKernan. I was a teacher at Beaumont High School for 37 years.
Oh, okay. How long ago did you, I assume you retired?
I retired 15 years ago.
Okay. That's not where I met you.
Huh?
That's not where I met you.
I was also with Riverside County Fire for 52 years.
Okay, I'm worried.
Did you used to be on the Board of Education?
No,
That was,
Mike Laura, his wife is still on.
okay.
She's president of the board. She's been on the board.
Who's on that? I don't remember.
It might have been, I was going to a lot of school board meetings with my daughter, who's now at University. When she started kindergarten, so that was about.
That probably had something to do with the fire department.
Okay.
So, because I sure remember your name, and,
Yes.
Actually, I had a brother-in-law named Mitch White,
Okay.
and they were at school at the same time. Mitch was a senior, and my brother-in-law, would become my brother-in-law, was, one of the sophomores, and his dad was the principal. I married the principal's daughter. That's job security. Anyhow,
I thought that wasn't allowed.
how?
I thought that was not allowed.
Okay, so there was a mistake on the script, so you have a new one.
I got a new one?
Yep.
Okay. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Oh, we're on?
We don't get many visitors these days.
That's why we're so excited. I checked.
Actually, I was really wanting to get here.
Oh, good.
Times have changed. Is this normal,
Pretty much, yeah.
or is it just since the pandemic?
Oh, no, just since the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when I was telling Nicole last time I was here, that was considerably further back, and there was probably a good 60 seats here, and it was full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We lost a few seats when we did the remodel.
Uh,
But I still think how many do we sit there normally, Nicole? Like 30 or 40?
It's been so long, I don't remember how many I think I only took 8 seats out,
Okay.
but then I added overflow.
Okay. Check a voicemail. Do I need to leave the dais?
Go ahead.
Oh, someone wants to give me a mortgage.
Well, take it. 1.1.
God, I wish I could block those calls. But, you know, it's not funny because my city phone I get so much spam on it. Do you?
Yeah. I don't even pull it or something.
Yeah, early on, I
Gee.
got people calling me up and saying, you know, you're behind on your payments. I'm like, no, you have
Yeah.
the wrong number. Like, no, this is the number. And it was the same person that was, whoever had the number before.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first year or so I had the phone got all the time.
Mine, that's why I don't answer it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
The only calls I get are
Yeah, I mean,
are spam calls.
it's so sad.
You a big Bronco fan?
Obviously.
I wanna
Hey, he knows you so well, man.
The reason I asked, you remember the Barrel Man?
Yes,
You remember the Barrel Man?
I do remember the Beaumont.
Well, you're looking at his brother right now.
Oh, very good. So I hope you're a Bronco fan.
Oh, I'm a big Bronco.
Okay.
That's That's saying a lot these days. It's
Oh.
hard to be a Bronco fan.
Yeah, well, I remember 3 Super Bowls, and I
Yeah.
had 2 of them.
Well, I grew up a Charger fan, and we still don't have any Super Bowls, so.
The thing is, the Chargers are now beneath the Broncos in the standings.
Are they?
Yeah. Yeah, we're number 3.
We're not comfortable if we're not in last place.
Nowhere to go but up.
Probably
why.
number 3 because of that one, they are politically.
Yeah,
Say,
well,
both 1 and 3.
well, it could be 2 and 2 though. That interception they dropped against Tampa Bay. I mean,
You know, there's a big statue of him now at the stadium.
oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, how did he? Because he would wear no shirt. He'd be standing out there in that sub-freezing water, just the barrel and the hat.
32 years, only missed 5 games, home or away.
Man.
It would be freezing cold.
See, how can you, with the barrel man, how can you not like the Broncos? It's not possible.
Hey,
So you didn't want to take over the barrel man duties?
No, there was only one barrel man that was decided a long time ago. His son did go one time, and at first, because people didn't know who he was, they were very upset. He was actually threatened a couple times,
Really?
and he had to explain to him, I'm his son, and I'm doing it one time. And,
You want them to mute that, John?
No, I was hoping they could move the camera down a little so that when you have it horizontal, you can see the council members, because you can just see the top of their heads.
Gotta love Zoom.
Bronco fans get a little.
Well, it's sitting on a laptop there on books. So, hey, there we go.
and what's
You
That's
guys
better.
saw the-
Yeah,
Saw the news, there we go, perfect.
That's
You
better,
saw the
yeah.
news about Eddie Van Halen passing away.
make it
Yeah,
forward more.
um,
There you go.
we did a thing at Beaumont High School where
Yeah, that's a good ad.
teachers wore
We're high-tech.
blueberries. Tim came to the school and did an assembly. And we had, like I said, we had 4 teachers that were pressing barrels. And I never realized that he looked a lot better in a barrel than I did.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
Come up with the barrel man idea.
He was gonna, originally was gonna be a big
Uh,
drum that he was gonna beat like a big drum. And my younger brother paid him $10
Okay, we're back. This is city council, meeting, and I will call this meeting to order at 6:26. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Martinez,
Here.
Councilmember Carroll,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara,
Here.
Mayor Santos.
Here. Okay, City Attorney, Mr. Pickney, could you read out from a closed session? Please.
Yes, the council met in closed session. Item number 1 was conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City designated representative, City Manager Todd Parton, and Administrative Services Director Carrie Mendoza. The employee organizations, the Beaumont Police Officers Association, there was no reportable action taken on that item. Item number 2, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, title City Manager, and that's just the annual evaluation of the City Manager. There was no reportable action taken. Item number 3, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representatives Lloyd White and Mike Lara, the unrepresented employee, the City Manager. There was no reportable action. Item 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, D2 and/or 3, 1 case, no reportable action was taken. Item number 5, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, D1, 2, and/or 3, workers' compensation cases number COBM 61, 62, 64, and 71. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, absentees were present, and I will go to a pledge of allegiance. Council White, please.
All right, right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
And to the
for
republic
which it stands,
for
one nation,
It stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
and justice for all.
Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, approval adjustments to the agenda or any conflict of interest disclosures? If not, there will be an announcement, recognition, proclamation, correspondence. We will move on the public comment period. Items not on the agenda. Due to current circumstances, we are encouraging members of the public to maintain participation in our meetings by using the following options: email comments, phone-in comments, and in-person, subject to applicable health orders. All of the details of these options can be found on the front of the agenda and will be also displayed on your screen throughout the meeting. Do we have any public comments? Nicole?
I have no emailed comments. I'm going to check the phone line, and then we'll go to the in-person. Carrie, do we have anyone on the phone?
No one on the line.
Mr. McKernan, did you want to speak during this portion of the meeting?
I'd like to.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you.
First of all, gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to do this tonight. The reason I'm here, I'd like to address the thing about the banners that we have for.
hang on a second. I don't know that your microphone's on.
Mike is, you're on. There you go.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for letting me be here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm here this evening to talk to you about the banners that we have for our military personnel that are hanging. First of all, I think it's one of the best ideas that we have come up with in our communities all over the United States. I have traveled a lot, and I've seen them in several different places, and I think it's a great idea. I currently have a grandson who is serving in the military, and I wanted to see if I could get a banner of him put up. And I was a little surprised to find out that I could not do that because my grandson is not a resident of the city of Beaumont. He is a resident of Cherry Valley. Now, the young people in Cherry Valley recognize Beaumont, and most of the people in Beaumont recognize them as being part of our community. They go to school here, they travel here. When people ask them where they're from, many times they will say they're from Beaumont. My grandson in particular went all the way from kindergarten through high school here in Beaumont. But I'm not speaking just for him alone. I'm talking about any of the young people that we have from the Cherry Valley area that are really a part of our community. And what I'm asking you is to maybe reconsider the policy and make it a community thing where we do recognize the Cherry Valley kids as being part of our community. I think we should take pride in the fact of what they're doing. They're literally putting their lives on the line, not just in combat. I mean, there's better chances you're going to be killed in training, as we've seen just over in the last couple of weeks or not. So here's what I'm asking, if you would just reconsider I believe it's called an ordinance, about the residency being right in Beaumont, and consider the residency as Cherry Valley is also part of the community and make the banners part of our community thing. Thank you for your consideration, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come up here and speak to you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
No other comments.
Okay. Do you want to take that or we move on? No comment? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we jump in on the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. approval of all ordinances and resolution be read by title only. Are there any items to be pulled on from item 1 to 8 in here to be discussed? If not, need a motion on this.
Mayor, if there's no items to be pulled, I move to approve all the items on the consent calendar from items 1 through 8.
To 8.
I'll second.
Very good.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara,
Yes.
Mayor Santos.
Yes. Thank you. Now, let's move on the public hearings in here. Approval of all ordinances and resolution to be read by title only. Item number 9, public hearing and consideration approval of plot plan 2020-0276, conditional use permit 2020-004 and 007, tentative parcel map number 37938 PM 2020-007 and environmental EMV 2020-0012, commonly referred to as 8th and Highland Springs, located on the southwest corner of 8th Street and Highland Spring Avenue. The AP number 419-150-034 in the Community Commercial CC Zone. Staff report. Carol?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Planning staff received an application for a plot plan, 2 conditional use permits, and a tentative parcel map for the proposed gas station, convenience store with alcohol sales, a quick service restaurant with a drive-through, and a lot split that was submitted on April 1st of this year. The municipal code does allow these uses subject to a conditional use permit in the zone. The property, as you mentioned, is zoned community commercial, and it also has a general plan land use designation of community commercial. To the north of the site is the Sundance Corporate Center that is in various stages of construction. It has a designation of specific plan. And to the east is the San Gregorio Memorial Hospital in the city of Banning. To the south of the property is zoned commercial general with the medical and dental offices. And to the west is residential multifamily that contains the Palm Grove Healthcare Skilled Nursing Facility. The subject site is 2.0 acres. It's currently vacant. It has existing curb and gutter on 8th and Highland Springs. A storm drain and partial sidewalk are constructed on Highland Springs and also on the hard corner of 8th and Highland Springs. The project includes 2 retail commercial buildings with a total square footage of approximately 7,600 square feet, and it's proposed to be constructed in 2 phases. The first phase will include the construction of a 4,100 square foot 7-Eleven convenience store with beer and wine sales. Also a gasoline station with 6 pumps, 12 fueling positions, and approximately 3,100 square foot canopy. A 3,800 square foot drive-through restaurant to be determined at a later time will be constructed as part of phase 2. The off-site improvements will be constructed as part of phase 1 by the applicant, and the on-site improvements will be constructed by the end users. The driveway on 8th Street will be fully constructed as part of phase 1, although it includes a small portion of the parcel that is proposed for development as phase 2. Staff worked very closely with the applicant to enhance the architecture on the convenience store that now includes title accent bands in the 7-Eleven corporate colors, canvas awnings, decorative lighting, decorative scoring, and recessed building areas and stone veneers. The project as proposed does require a minimum of 56 parking spaces. The applicant is providing 89 parking spaces, not including the 12 fueling spaces under the canopy. The gas station and convenience store are proposing a 24-hour operation. And as I mentioned previously, the quick service restaurant has not been identified. Therefore, operational characteristics aren't available. However, it is anticipated that it will be a 24-hour operation as well. The property is located within Census Tract 438.18, and that census tract does allow for 2 off-sale ABC licenses based on the population ratios in that census tract. There are currently 4 off-sale licenses in the census tract that belong to Stater Brothers, Food for Less, the Beaumont Gas Mart, and the Highland Shell. Therefore, ABC will require a public convenience and necessity determination for the proposed Type 20 off-sale license for beer and wine. Typically, ABC is looking for proximity to sensitive receptors, including schools, parks, and places of worship, and that separation requirement is 600 feet. The project is located at least 600 feet from all of those types of uses. That's in more detail in the staff report. The applicant has also provided a letter to demonstrate the justification for the PCN, which is attachment H to your staff report. Due to the scope of the project, a draft initial study and mitigated negative declaration were prepared and circulated for a 30-day public review period, which began on July 29th of this year and concluded on August 28th. No formal agency comments were received during or after the comment period. However, staff did receive phone calls from party and the hospital just requesting more information on the project. The project was heard by the Planning Commission on September 8th of this year, who forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. So at this time, staff would like to recommend that the City Council conduct a public hearing and recommend that the adoption of a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, as well as approval of plot plan PP 2020-0276, conditional use permits numbers CUP 2020-0047 and -0048, and approval of tentative parcel map 37938, subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Also, we do have Evergreen DevCo, the applicant, Laura Ortiz and Caitlin Fox are also available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing at 6:41. Is there any public comments on here, Nico?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay. So we don't have in person, so I will close the public hearing at 6:42. Now it's open for a discussion, council. Raise your hand, please. There you go. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Mike Lara.
Yeah, Carol, I'm not sure who these questions would be for, but I just got a few. One is, with our attachments, I didn't see any type of a phased plot plan showing where the delineation was for phase 2 compared to phase 1. Do we have one, or has one been submitted?
So the phasing follows the tentative parcel map. So you have parcel 1 and parcel 2. So the phasing follows those, the 7-Eleven convenience store gas station will be constructed on parcel 1 in addition to the full improvements on the A Street driveway. So there's not a phasing plan, it's just parcel 1 and including the full improvements on the A Street driveway.
So that being the case, then would we require those documents to be recorded prior to issuance?
So for the tentative map, they will have to go through a final map process in order to split the properties and then develop on that site. We have also indicated to the applicant that they'll have to have some kind of agreement between 7-Eleven and the parcel 2 owner, which is the developer, in order to develop that portion of parcel 2 as part of phase 1.
Okay, so then landscaping, we're not going to get 100% landscaping on the perimeter of the project. We're just going to have the landscape gas station, so to speak, to start with, correct?
That is correct. So yes, because the offsite improvements will be constructed as phase one. Maybe let's see, the developer can speak to that. Because we're talking about the offsite landscape improvements on 8th as part of parcel 2.
Yes.
Carol, would you like me to address that?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. This is Laura Ortiz with Evergreen Development. And in response to your question, yes, we will be constructing all of the offsite improvements except for landscaping on, so on 8th and Highland Springs, as they surround 7-Eleven, we will construct all those improvements. And of course, 7-Eleven will be installing the landscaping on our offsite as part of that corner of development. But that stretch that is west of the drive entrance would go in with phase 2, because that's when the phase 2 end user would then be able to maintain the landscaping that would be installed. So it's only the portion west of that driveway that would not go in with phase 1.
Okay, and the reason that I ask is because sometimes if it takes a while to finish phase 2, or phase 2 doesn't get off the ground, then it just kind of looks like a construction site for a while. And that's the concern. It's the visual that the public will have. That would be my only concern in that regard, as far as phasing that project. The other concern that I have is exiting the gas station on either 8th Street or Highland Springs. And I know I may be too early with this question, but is it going to be right turn only? The reason I ask that is because of the amount of traffic we currently have on Highland Springs. And I'm looking at the potential traffic that we'll be getting on 8th Street to have somebody pull out, do a left-hand turn onto 8th or Highland Springs with the volume of traffic we have is a concern, safety concern of mine. And those are the only two items I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Laura, so there was a traffic impact analysis that was prepared by Urban Crossroads, and it did analyze those 2 driveways, and it does allow for only right in, right out movements on both 8th Street and Highland Springs. So that is conditioned in the project, and the applicant is aware of that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Carol.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Question? Go ahead, Councilor Julio. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, Council Member Mayor Pro Tem Laura. That was my question. I was trying to read on how that was going to work with the exits. So thank you for answering that, Carol. So you're going to go out, right turn only to 8th, and right only onto Highland Springs. Okay, so there is no intersection that's coming out of that 8th Street right turn, correct? It's not butting up with the Beaver Medical, correct? I'm not the best at reading maps. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. No, actually, this was a discussion item at the Planning Commission, the turning movements on both driveways, and there was discussion about potentially putting in like a pork chop to help prevent left turn movements, but because of the requirements for the fueling trucks to get in, it's going to make it a little bit difficult. So we have modified a condition from Planning Commission to City Council that does give the city engineer the ability to work with the applicant on trying to find alternative methods to prevent left turn movements, but still allow access for the fueling trucks to come into the site.
And I take it it's too close to the Highland Springs to be able to put another type of signal or anything right there, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then remind me on this phase 2 construction. And so that's not going to happen until after phase 1. And therefore, because we don't know who's going to go in there for the drive-through. So obviously that would be built for them, whichever company takes that over. Is that correct? We wait.
That's correct. They haven't identified a tenant for the QSR yet. So once that's identified, they'll come in as part of phase 2. I know that 7-Eleven is anxious to move forward with this project. So I think that, pending approval from the city council, that we'll probably see things moving quickly out there.
Okay, so my concern was also, like Mayor Pro Tem Lara, was what it's going to look like meantime. if things slow down and they can't find an occupant and so forth, how is that going to be for meanwhile? But my question related to that is I noticed that on the alternate preliminary application, it also says something about a tire store. So that's gone, right? That's not a possibility coming back?
Correct. So this developer submitted what's called a preliminary review. So prior to submitting for formal entitlements, they wanted to determine the feasibility of the project, and they had two alternatives, one with the quick service restaurant and one with the tire sales. At that time, when that came in, we had indicated to the applicant that the city was considering doing a moratorium on tire sales. So we discouraged that type of use. And then I know, I think after they had submitted, the city council did adopt that moratorium. So no, that's not an option. It's not part of this approval, and the moratorium is still in effect. So if the applicant wanted to look at that in the future, they would have to wait till that moratorium is lifted and then apply to modify this application or apply for a new conditional use permit.
That was my next question. So we're not really guaranteed there is going to be a drive-through. Things don't happen. They can modify what they want there, but they'd have to come through a process to get that approved, correct?
That's correct. And if it's a conditional use permit, it would go back to Planning Commission. Because they've got a tentative parcel map with this application, it requires city council approval. So if they did want to come in and modify it, it would go back to Planning Commission.
Okay, and then at that time, we'd have the ability to say, no, we want to see this happen or so. Okay, very well. All right, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Nancy. Councilor Carol?
Thank you. Carol, the traffic study took into account the impact of phase 2 if it's a drive-through restaurant also, correct?
That is correct. So the traffic study analyzed it as a drive-through restaurant.
All right. So the full potential traffic impact was taken under review.
Correct.
All right, that's good. And if you had to estimate, what is the timeline break between phase 1 and phase 2?
I wouldn't be able to estimate that. I would defer to the developer, the master developer on that.
Okay, because I am concerned about, things change. And if it is in a temporary state between the two, then the landscaping's not in, it looks like a construction site. I don't want them coming back with, wanting a very unattractive project on phase 2. So I'm concerned there could be a change in the economics of the city at that time or business. So maybe the developer could just give us a general timeline.
Sure. Again, this is Laura Ortiz, Councilmember Carroll. And to answer your question, of course, we are more motivated than anyone to have it move forward as quickly as possible. We are in some early conversations with 2 different parties for that parcel for a drive-through restaurant. And so our hope would actually be that before 7-Eleven completes construction of their building, we would be underway under construction on the second phase. So, that again, we are in unusual times, so no one can predict timing and how the tenants will move forward. But that is our goal. That is what we're shooting for. We are trading some letters of intent with those tenants, and we hope within the next 30 to 45 days, we would know that we have one of them secured, that we can begin to move forward with them.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, very good. Lloyd, you're okay? Okay, my quick questions on this one here, again, on the parcel number 2, your QSR, the quick service restaurant. Carol, if probably Laura could answer this, you mentioned about the specific, tenant in there. I was looking on the rendering on this, looking on the drawing on that particular 3,500 square foot building in there. So does it really one tenant in there that you're eyeing, or several? Because look like the driveway in there is only one drive-through in there, coming in and coming out. Looking on the drawing. I don't know, you, Carol or Laura could answer that. My question is, is it single tenant on that or not?
So the QSR, the quick service restaurant, is proposed for a single tenant.
Very good. Okay, so on that, there'll be a single tenant in there. And then now my question is with Mayor Pro Tem Mike Lara and Councilor Julio Martinez, if you're towards going westbound of 8th Street, turning left on this particular commercial center, are you going to have a dedicated left turn only, or they will do a U-turn all the way to Senior? Carol.
So there's no left turn movements allowed into the project site based on 8th Street and Highland Springs. So it'll be restricted to right in, right out.
Okay.
Turning movements only. So it's, if someone wanted to utilize it, they're going to have to circulate, on city streets in order to get to where they can make a right turn into the project site, whether it be on 8th Street or Highland Springs.
Well, I would suggest that we have to, study that more often, because that's a stretch from Highland Spring to Xenia in there. So there's residentials in there, and then there's a school, and there will be a U-turn in between of that. There will be a liability, to the city on that. So that's my comment on that. Probably we have to reconsider something in there, turning left only, westbound on that, turning left on that particular commercial center. That's my 2 cents on that project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any motion? I'll ask a motion to on item number 9 on the approval of this plat map. Nobody wants to make a motion.
Mayor, I'll go ahead.
No.
So we've held the public hearing. You closed that, right?
Yeah, we close it,
Okay.
6:14.
So I move to adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring and reporting program, approved plot plan PP 20200276, conditional use permit CUP 2020-0046, conditional use permit CUP 2020-0047, and tentative parcel map 37938, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's go on item number 10. Hold a public hearing and consider the adoption of a final extension of ordinance number 1111, an interim urgency ordinance for a temporary moratorium prohibiting public storage facilities, moving and storage establishments, automobile parking facilities, including recreational vehicle, truck stops and terminals, and building storage yards on this. Staff report. Carol, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. On October 15th, the City Council adopted an interim urgency ordinance for a moratorium on several storage type uses, which included public storage facilities, moving and storage establishments, automobile parking facilities, RV parking, truck stops and terminals, and building storage yards. Per the government code section 65858, that interim ordinance was only enforced for 45 days from the adoption, which had an expiration date of November 29th, 2019. The government code does allow legislative body to extend the interim ordinance for a period of 10 months and 15 days, which was approved by the City Council on November 19th, 2019. And it does allow for a final 1 year period, extension, which is being proposed tonight. This can happen after a public notice and at a public hearing. The interim urgency ordinance extension was advertised in the Press Enterprise on October 25th, 2020. So if approved tonight, the expiration of the moratorium will be October 15th, 2021. As you know, the general plan is moving forward towards adoption, and staff feels that following the adoption of the general plan and the zoning code updates that we can develop standards for these type of uses that comply with the goals and policies of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. And so at this time, staff recommends that the City Council hold a public hearing and approve an ordinance for a 1 year extension of an interim urgency ordinance for the City of Beaumont, enacting a temporary moratorium prohibiting public storage facilities, moving and storage establishments, automobile parking facilities, including recreational vehicles, automobile parking facilities, truck stops and terminals, and building storage yards pursuant to Government Code Section 65858. And this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you. I will open for a public hearing at 7 o'clock. Any public comment on here, Nicole?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No one on the line.
Okay, very good. In person, none. So I will close this, a public hearing at 7 o'clock. Okay, council, discussion on this item number 10. And
Mayor, I'll make a motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only one year extension of ordinance number 1111, being an interim urgency ordinance of the City of Beaumont, enacting a temporary moratorium prohibiting public storage facilities, moving and storage establishments, automobile parking facilities, including recreational vehicles, automobile parking facilities, truck stops and terminals, and building storage yards pursuant to Government Code Section 65858 to become effective immediately.
very good, thank you. Mike,
Yes,
you second?
yes,
There you go.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Okay, item number 11, public hearing to adopt resolution amending the prior year capital improvement plan and the 5-year fiscal year 2021 to 2025 capital improvement plan. Staff report, please. Kristen Day.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first amendment to your CIP for your prior year document as well as your FY 21 through 25. These are the items that staff brought to you at your last meeting and discussed the possibilities after doing the end of the year financials of some additional projects that we would include. So the first project is the Potrero Fire Station. And basically this is the substitution of those prior bond funds and backing out your general fund dollars. That allows for your second project, which is the street improvement program. We would roughly take 3.5 million and put that into a mid-year street improvement program for you. As council indicated interest last time, staff has been out to bid, and we're happy to say that the bids look like they're coming in very well and may be able to get you your full list of streets with appropriate applications on them. We plan to bring that item back to you on October 20th for consideration, and then we would get right into construction. The third project is the Stewart Park improvements. This would take $2 million from your CFD PAYGO funds for the redevelopment of Stewart Park. That would include things such as shade structures, parking facilities, additional playground equipment, and walking trails throughout the park. We are working on a conceptual park design to bring back to the city council for final approval prior to creating construction documents. And then the last project is a prior year project that staff had identified, and this will increase the actual funding to that project. So the last project is a PLC upgrade construction project. City Council awarded the design contract to that. We've been working with the design engineer. Lift stations, the PLCs are largely outdated. We can't even get components for those any longer. In addition to that, as we went through the evaluation, we found much more electrical work that would need to be done as part of this project. These PLCs would link into your plant system, plant SCADA system, in order to do all of the projects across the city for all of the lift stations. We're estimating now that this project is about $700,000 to do. That will get the construction as well as the programming back into the SCADA system. This becomes important because we have very limited wet well capacity. Your regional lift station, which is Mesa Lift Station, has about a 30-minute response time for staff before we have an overflow. Overflows roughly could cost you up to $1,000 a gallon. And so this particular project, in addition to replacing all the electrical and the PLC methods of communication for looking at radio communication as well as cell tower communication, that is new. That is, we anticipated just doing one, but in talking through it and understanding as we're going through the master plan, the system limits that we may have, we felt like doing a redundant notification system with the limited wet well capacity was truly important to keep us out of any fine scenarios if possible. Staff is estimating that we bring some of the CFD funds that we talked about over into this project for a total construction appropriation of $700,000. We're asking that you hold a public hearing tonight, and if council so chooses, then to adopt the resolution that would provide for the first amendment of the prior year CIP and the fiscal 21-25 CIP. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you. I will open the public hearing at 7:06. Any comments on this, public comments?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line, Nicole.
Very good. In person, we don't have it, and I will close the public hearing at 7:06. Council discussion, please. Mike? Mayor
Yeah,
Pro Tem
just-
Mike, go ahead.
We good?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Christine, thank you. Just two questions. One on the Potrero Fire Station, where it says bond proceeds. Does that include the CFD money that was collected under previous facility agreements that we had?
I'm going to defer to the finance director, the city manager on that.
Yeah, Christine, let me tackle that for you. So these are bond proceeds that were unspent, and these are from issuances primarily that occurred between 2010 through 2015. So they would have been facilities bond funds that have been issued over that period of time. So these are facilities CFD dollars, and we did affirm with our bond counsel that we could utilize these funds for the purpose of constructing the fire station.
Okay, great. That's good. I'm glad. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And the second question is, so on the Stewart Park improvements, which I'm really excited about, this additional $2 million is going to be used for other items separate from the splash park, which has 1.45 million, correct? Do I understand that?
Yeah, the splash park has the 1.2, and then there are some additional funds for the improvements to the skate park. So all of those will be used together.
Okay, and then so this 2 million will be for general park improvements that we'll be able to see or get a better idea of once the conceptual plan is completed?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you so much, Christina. I'm looking forward to getting, do we know what the status is on this concept coming to us?
I'm going to guess that we're probably still about 6 weeks out
Okay.
of being able to bring you back something. We had a first blush. Unfortunately, that design contractor has had some personal issues, and so we're actually having to move on to a new one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christina. Appreciate that. Thanks, Mayor. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll just interject on that, Christine, what Mayor Pro Tem mentioned about the, the vendors that we're going to use on that. I'm glad that within 6 weeks, we will have another vendor to accomplish that design. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm anticipating, that we would be able to present back to the council, something that for your consideration. And we're generally looking at the concepts that are mentioned in the staff report. So shade structures, picnic pavilions, a new playground.
Yes.
We would look to incorporate each of the blocks of the park. And so currently right now, I believe it's 9th is shut just by some barricades. We would actually incorporate that into the park. It would look like a street segment. And then we've actually looked at 10th as well, just between the pool and the detention area, again, making it one long big park that could be completely usable. We are having to do a traffic study on that, so I've got to get the traffic study done to make sure that there's no implications to that closure before we bring something back to you. But I'm hoping that we'll have something back in front of you with the general concepts that you might be able to play around with within about 6 weeks.
Very good. In addition, do you know how many acres we have in there? The other portion on 11th Street and 10th Street, and then the 10th to 9th Street. How many acres we have? We have a 7 or 8 or 10?
No, sir, I don't know the exact acreage, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we need a motion on the adoption on this. Please.
You'll need to hold a public hearing first, Mayor.
Oh, no, we closed it at 7:06, so we're doing the motion now on this. Is there anybody do a motion, a other discussion on this, council?
No, I'll make a motion though, Mayor, when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead, please.
All right, so I move that we waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont amending the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2021, 2022 through 2024, 2025 and related prior year CIP project list.
I'll second that.
Very good.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Okay, thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on the action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolution to be read by title only. Item number 12, consideration of approval resolution in support of California Citizens for Local Control Volunteer Organization. Staff report, that will be me, Ray Santos. Okay, give you a background on this. This organization or this, California Citizen for Local Control, a volunteer organization, has contacted us, the city, seeking support in the form of resolution to form an alliance of cities that concur with organization mission. A resolution has been prepared for this consideration and adoption by us, by the City Council. give you some, background on this, quickly on this. I like this, this resolution, this local control, especially on these, their mission is to, this organization whose mission is to spread awareness and enlist support to ensure that cities can continue to manage their own land use and zoning issues. On this resolution, section number 3, that the city councils state it will support this California Citizens for Local Control volunteer organization and its effort for protecting local control for cities. Now, give you an update on this. There's a 15 cities involved on this. There's 19 cities in progress and 73 elected officials signed on this support. Most of the, I'll mention some of the cities in here. City of Lawndale and Torrance, they're on the, on the beach side, on that area, and especially the South Bay Cities Council of Government. So that's the reason, we put this, on this resolution, and that's all I have on this. Any public comments on this?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No one on the line.
Okay, very good. City Council discussion, if there's any. If not, need the motion. Okay.
Well, I got some.
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Julio Martinez.
I have a question.
Yeah, so I just got some discussion points I'd like to see if, where the council might have on their opinion.
Yeah.
So, the concept of the legislator doing too much local control legislation, we've got behind on. I mean, we're supportive of anything that is trying to tell the government, the state government, that they're doing too much imposing on our local control. And we've done that through the process of the League of Cities. The League of Cities is primarily our unit that we go to and that comes to us, and they do it professionally by looking at the legislation that's coming forth, and they give us opinions on how we need to do that, and they supply us resolution letters and letters of opposition and so forth that we've got, we've already jumped on board and we've already complied with in the past. What my concern is lending our city name to organizations that I don't know a lot about. I'm very protective of our image, and I'm very cautious of whom I want to lend the city of Beaumont's name to. I don't know enough about the organization. I try to look it up. I didn't see much, and I'm very cautious about what I'm going to stamp City of Beaumont on. And I'm not comfortable yet with this organization because I don't see enough about it. I don't know who runs it. I don't know what they're doing. And again, their intent, we totally support. We've already made that clear on the opposition letters that we've sent to the legislator, to the governor. So that's not an issue. Whether we say yes and we agree with them or not, that's really not the issue. The issue I have a problem with is the fact that we are lending city support by resolution behind this. Because if you look at the resolution and make some claims where you have city supports the actions, including ballot measures, and we may or may not, but I don't know what our commitment is as a city if we were to go ahead and say, yes, we want to get on board with this. And again, we've done that through the League of Cities, and we've done our share of political action, and then we have Townsend that helps us as well as far as their opinion. So I really think we have a mechanism already that voices the position of the city. I have an issue with and I'm sure these are great people. I'm sure they have their focus, again, we agree with, and their intentions are great. I'm not making any statement about that. I just am protective of using our city name for groups that I'm not quite comfortable with or familiar with. I think it should be more, we should have more of a protection. I think we owe it to our residents of where we throw our name behind by getting a little bit of more information about what this is all about. What other things have they supported, what things do they maybe support in the future, and so forth. And, I have no problem saying, yeah, the city supports your efforts, But as far as a resolution that's going and claiming that, I have an issue with. And that's not just this organization, it's just the whole idea of putting our image and name with any organization. I'm very protective of that. I think our residents deserve us to do more diligence in the background and the research. So that's where I come from. So I don't know how flexible our council is. If someone just sends an email and we say, yes, we jump on board, or if we want to say, hey, our city name means more than that. We're going to, when we get involved, we're going to get involved, but we want to make sure that we're comfortable with that. I'm not quite comfortable. And again, Mayor, it's a great cause, and I agree with everything, but it's not that I'm arguing. It's the fact that, how easy is it to just stamp our name somewhere? And I'd rather have our name mean something and do it with more professionalism of when I really feel comfortable behind the group that we're dealing with. So that's where I sit on that. So maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion or not, but I'm just trying to set a precedent for the future so that we just don't have anybody come in and say, yeah, and then we say, oh yeah, and throw our name on it. So that's my opinion. So I don't know what others say about that, but that's what I have concerning this item. So thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Lloyd?
Ditto. I can't agree with you more on this one, Julio. I went just now, used my personal device to research on Facebook, and the only thing I can find is something where they did a response about 10 years ago to a Facebook page. So I agree with you. I would want to know who's involved, not just what other cities are on board. And as you said, we support this and sign a resolution. Next thing you know, someone who we may not have a lot of respect for because we didn't know who they were are out there putting out advertisements saying the city of Beaumont is behind them and supporting them. So I definitely would want to know more. And even if I knew more, I agree with you a lot of what you said, Mr. Martinez, and I'm very uncomfortable with supporting a resolution where we don't know more about it. And I agree with you. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So we will, make a motion or decline the whole thing, the idea on this.
I think it dies.
Yeah. Okay. What's your?
Yes,
What's
Mayor,
your
so
take?
if you call for motion, and then if there is no motion forthcoming, then the item would die for lack of a
Okay.
motion. Yeah.
So let's move on this. Okay. Thank you. Let's go on. Item number 13, approval of requisition greater than $25,000 in accordance with the City of Beaumont purchasing ordinance. City staff report, please.
Mayor, may I interject before the staff report? Please?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is an item that we've instructed staff that it should not go on a consent agenda, that we have these limits and requirements. I don't know that there's a whole lot of discussion on this one, so I wanted to sort of cut it short, not have to get the staff presentation unless someone else objects to that. And I'm ready to make a motion for approval unless somebody else wants to hear the staff report and have discussion about this item. I know Jeff was real excited about jumping in, but
You waited for it, man.
so seeing no objections, I'll go ahead and move to approve the list of vendors to receive payments over $25,000 up to the amount specified in attachment A.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
That was my easiest presentation yet. Thank you.
And your best.
Ouch.
Okay, item number 14. Phase 2, fundings of comprehensive operations analysis, staff report. Liz, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is a receive and file, and it is a summary of our comprehensive operations analysis consultant, Moore and Associates. It is a summary of their findings as part of phase 2. If you'll recall, City Council awarded Moore and Associates a contract actually a year ago in October of 2019. The phase 1 findings were presented to Council in May of 2020, and then this is the second phase. So the analysis, the second phase includes analysis of operating and capital funding, a fair equity analysis, goals, objectives, and performance standards, and finally service recommendations. As far as recommendations on operating and capital funding analysis, we as a city are currently categorized as rural, which means we're under 50,000 population. The consultant and I fully believe that the 2020 census is going to put us over that threshold, and that means that automatically our requirement would go to 20% operating cost. The Transportation Development Act does allow for a 5-year grace period to realize that threshold, and at that time we would be required to meet 20% revenue at fare box recovery. Recommended operational funding from the consultant suggests to help Beaumont reach that, there's a whole list of items that we could do to increase our fare box recovery. And that includes one of which is already online, and that's the electric vehicle charging station that did go online a couple weeks ago. I actually saw people fueling there. It was a great thing to see. The other is the proposed compressed natural gas fueling station, which we are in negotiations with the gas company. That will also contribute to our fare box. Another item that we would need to look at further is maybe a passenger fare increase, partner contributions, Measure A funds, and then obviously contributions from the city's general fund. Partner opportunities can come from agencies such as the school district, neighboring cities in which we provide sole public transit services, specifically Calamasa, and businesses located in key commercial and industrial areas that we see like Lowe's and Amazon and Icon. Moving on to a fare equity analysis, our fare structure falls exactly in the middle when compared to other agencies such as Omnitrans, Banning, Sunline, and RTA. Banning and Sunline are both on the lower end. It is of the opinion of the consultant that there's an opportunity for fare elasticity in Beaumont because Banning and Sunline are both underpriced, but we would certainly have to evaluate that more. Any fare increase or decrease, any change in the fare structure does require a public hearing. With that potential fare increase, though, is also a loss of ridership, and the Simpson-Curtin rule, which is known throughout the country with public transit providers, states that for every 3% fare increase, ridership will drop 1%. So that is something to consider if we go down the road of a potential fare increase. Goals, objectives, and performance standards. The City of Beaumont's general plan contains goals related to the transit program, and those include increased connectivity and coordination with other agencies and operators. We need to ensure future transit demands are met through various strategies that include working with other city departments and developers to create transit-ready developments or transit-oriented developments. There's several service recommendations that the consultant has listed, and I'll briefly go through those. Ensure service information is accurate, consistent, and effectively distributed. Develop a driver relief policy that does not negatively impact service. Develop a vehicle fueling policy and schedule. Determine how to address service to Calamasa. Ensure all stops are served per the published schedule unless marked as drop-off only. Implement a 20% fare increase. Work with private employers and develop partnerships. Eliminate flag stop policies. Improve service reliability. incorporate school service into regular local service, improve service along Highland Springs Avenue, improve connectivity between Banning and Beaumont, extend service to the Crossroads Logistics Center, Rolling Hills Business Park, which is where Amazon is located, work with Sunline and RCTC to minimize duplication, specifically the proposed Route 10 that Sunline will be implementing here shortly, rebrand and update vehicles and signage, which is actually the next item on the agenda, and prepare a fleet replacement plan to address transition to a zero emission fleet. We still are driving some unleaded buses, and our goal is to get all of the unleaded buses off the road and into some sort of zero emission. So with that, the consultant is currently developing an action plan, and that will be brought to you next meeting, October 20th, and that action plan will be a presentation by the consultant in which he will talk about phase 1 and phase 2 and where should Beaumont go from here. There is no fiscal impact with this report. It is a receive and file, and I'm available for any questions.
Very good, Liz. Thank you. Okay, and council discussion. Any questions to Liz? Go ahead, Councilor Julio, and then after that will be Mayor Pro Tem Lara.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. You actually answered the question right at the end about where we go from here, but let me just kind of put it in perspective now. So they gave you a lot of info and a lot of suggestions. So I'm trying to digest, how is that going to work? I mean, are you going to have a team where you go and discuss which ones you can do, make a plan up? So is that something we're expecting in the action plan when they come up to kind of let us know what we should be doing from here and how we should go about it?
Yeah, so the action plan is basically going to be in draft form, and it will be presented to council. And it's at that time that we will need to make decisions on where we're going to go. For example, the fare increase. Is 20% appropriate for us right now or in the near future? And so that discussion will need to take place at the council level. And then from there, the consultant will take all of the recommendations and discussion from that meeting and package it up into a final action plan. And that action plan will set the framework for Beaumont Transit for the next 5 to 10 years.
Is that final plan the third phase we're talking about?
Yes, but it's important that the discussion will take place at the council level, and so the final will come after that.
Okay, and I've noticed there's a lot of interagency discussion. I mean, your RTA, your Calamasa, your Banning. One of my really focus one is the school district, because that's a whole nother thing about, what's going to happen there and any possible contributions and so forth. So that discussion is where we'll be talking about this stuff, correct?
Correct. And it's important to remember that these are all observations and recommendations that the consultant, in their expert opinion, just looking on from the outside in, that says, okay, this needs to be looked at. Beaumont should be looking at this. And I can tell you that some of these service recommendations we implemented immediately because they were, and I'll give you an example, the eliminate the flag stop policy. That really just kind of smacked us in the face when we realized what the consultant was looking at and how, being on the outside, he said, this is, you're running your route slow because of this. If you eliminate this, it will help your routes run smoother. So that was something that we implemented immediately.
And I know some of the stuff they recommend we've actually tried in some way in the past, maybe some of the interagency discussions and so forth. So we'll have to come back and discuss what we did in another avenue, I guess, and how we can make it work a second time around. I don't know. But okay, I just wanted to get that visual on how we're going to go about it. So I appreciate it. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike Lara.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And Julio kind of touched on it as well. But the school district, that obviously is a concern. I know that that it's something we need to look at. And I know that this will come back to us, but I think one thing we do want to start maybe considering is a 2x2 to begin speaking with the district to see what can be worked out as far as some assistance from the district. They've got a large increase at the high school that they're getting ready to begin. There's a school, I think Summerwind is under construction now. So I think the sooner we look at it, getting into discussions with them, I think the better off it will be. As far as fare increases, I would suggest we maybe look at phased approach. But I think what would help us, at least for me as a council member, make a decision is if I had an idea of when our CNG station would be coming online, because that's something that will also help with fare box, correct?
Correct.
And I think knowing that, we could plan better as far as, if the CNG is going to be online in maybe fiscal year 22, 23 or 21, 22, then maybe we phase in an increase in 2021 or some combination of that, just so that we can kind of see, we know when we'll be getting support, additional funding support from the CNG station. So those are the kind of the three things that I was looking at as far as in advertising. I really think we need to look at moving advertising forward sooner rather than later. And I'm not talking about on the outside of the buses, but on inside of the buses or bus stops, anywhere that we have that ability to begin doing that now. I think the sooner that we can approach that, obviously with council's consent, the better our fare box does early on. So those are just other things that I had comments. That's all I have, Mayor.
Very good.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Council Carroll?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
All good suggestions by my fellow council members, and good job on the report, Elizabeth. It looks covers everything. So thank you for this. I agree that we need to look at the CNG station. We also need to have not only the timeline for it, but potentially what we hope the economic impact of that is going to be. So what we need to start to do is, I hate to call these revenue, but really it's revenue coming in. So it'll be revenue coming in from CNG, revenue coming in from the electrical charging station, and we need to look at plugging in or counteracting the expense of doing the route to Cali Mesa with finding out how we can offset that with some sort of income that may come on that to offset the cost of that. I think that we need to prioritize these things based on, timeline, amount of money, and what's the most feasible. I think we need to just start the discussions early on the Cali Mesa and on some of these other points. I would like to not go to a fare increase until we know what the incoming amounts are going to be. Because any touch on the fare increase, as you can see, reduces ridership. And everything that we do constantly promotes the ridership. I'm not saying we won't end up going to some sort of a small increase, but I'd like to put that behind some of the other more proactive things where we can start to timeline all these possibilities and what the economic impact of that might be on our fare box. We still may end up at some point where we have to do some money from the general fund, but we need to start with how we can make things come in to offset the whole before we start to look at how much we need to do from the general fund or how much we need to do for a fare increase. I do think, I am concerned that here we are, we're going to try to do everything right to try to cover these, the fare box and do all of these positive programs to try and get that advertising, the CNG station. And then I don't want the erosion to happen with Sunline, taking away some of the revenue. So here we are trying to build it up, build it up, build it up. And then no matter what we do, we still potentially have leakage that we don't even have today, but future leakage that'll offset all of the good work we do. So I think we really need to step up on talking to RCTC and RTA about a drain on all the work that we might be doing that might start with things like the Sunline having duplication of the line. So that's what I think, and I think that we need to get on the strategy of that as soon as possible, because none of these things are going to happen quickly. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd?
Elizabeth, thank you. It's been, I think 2-3 years in getting this report done, and you stuck
Yes.
with it, and I appreciate that. And I also look forward to the planning meeting and setting priorities and moving forward. So thank you for getting this done. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Very good. Good job. Good job on this. Is there any
Thank you.
discussion, question to Liz? So we could put this to receive and file.
Mayor, I'll move to receive and file.
I'll second that.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yeah.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Okay, move on. Item number 15, Beaumont Transit Branding and Logo Campaign. Liz, please.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
I'm very excited about this staff report.
Yeah,
This is staff's recommendation on the new Beaumont Transit branding and logo. I've asked Ashley to join us because she is the artistic guru on staff. And blue is blue to me, but what is blue to you? Ashley, we had this discussion. Blue is blue. Apparently there's 100 different blues. So for any graphic questions, I'll defer to Ashley. In July of 2019, as you know, Banning and Beaumont separated and moved away from past transit and entered into an interagency service agreement that included each agency going with their own branding. We retained the services of a consultant called JPW Communications, and some of the broader scope of work was done at the staff level, and then we took what we had started here, turned it over to them, and for $6,000, they actually finished the product that you see attached tonight. The Beaumont Transit logo fits well within the city's existing main brand. Elements of the new design include utilization of approved city colors, utilization of accessory brand elements, and complementary fonts. We also require JPW to create a logo that includes elements previously used on the existing beautiful commuter link route bus that we just purchased a couple years ago that you see on the freeway. So we asked them to tie that existing logo in as well. This project was paid for by Riverside County Transportation Commission under the State Transit Assistant Grant funding. And there were no general fund monies used on this project. So this is the first step in the new branding proposed. And then the second step, if approved tonight, we will work with a contractor to actually take the design work and do the installation of the bus wraps. And we already have been in conversations with 3 different contractors that do bus wraps. And so after tonight's meeting, we have put them on notice that we would like to move quickly. I would like to see this sometime around the end of November, beginning of December, but we do need to coincide it with the city of Banning. We agreed verbally early on that we would pull the trigger simultaneously, and that's what's best for the passengers. And so we're in communication with the city of Banning on their timeline. They're a little bit ahead of us, but we are going to do our best to do this simultaneously. So with that, we're asking that you approve the attached artwork as Beaumont Transit's official logo and branding campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments.
Okay.
Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No one on the line, Nicole.
Very good. Thank you. Council discussion? Anyone? Go ahead, Nancy. Give it to me.
That's fine.
Okay. Council Nancy Carroll, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Elizabeth and Ashley, what a great job you guys did. It looks terrific. I know what you started out with when you were like at your very basic level. It looks so polished, so professional. Ashley, you did a great job. Elizabeth, I love it. You know, I think the wraps are going to look great. I really like the design and colors. You have made it look like we're a huge city, highly elevated. So you did a great job. It looks wonderful. That's it. I have nothing else to say other than kudos.
Thank you, Nancy.
Very good. Go ahead, Council Lloyd White.
Let someone else.
Somebody else. Okay, anybody else? Okay. I'll go ahead, Mayor Pro Temp Mike Lara. And then after that will be Council Julio Martinez. Go ahead.
I really like the way that the logo turned out. I like it the way that both the commuter and the Beaumont Transit. The colors, I would like to see if there's a different color palette that we could use. That's just for me. I'm just 1 of 5, but I like the logo, and I like the way everything looks, and I like the way that they pulled the mountain in on the back of the bus. So I'm excited to get this thing moving forward as well. So those are the only comments I have. Thank you. Good job.
Very good. Thank you. Council Julio Martinez.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations. I think it looks really refreshing, really appealing. Just 2 quick questions. One, you said that the wraps are going to be part of the funding as well, part of the grant funding?
Correct, yes. We have $100,000 in grant funding, and just a preliminary review of the bids that we've received, the lowest is about $90,000. And so with the $6,000 that we spent with the artwork, we will come in under budget.
Okay, and you said is Banning rebranding too? Is that what you meant about simultaneously waiting?
Yes, they took their rebranding to council several months ago. And I was recently sent an email with what their bus wraps look like. Their logo is green, of course, for those of you that have been around a while. And I can certainly share that with council if you'd like. I have it in an email just so you can see what theirs looks like.
No, I'll see it soon enough, but I'm just curious. And a question for Ashley. I've got to know what the name of that blue is. That's there. Because
they're both our Pantone colors from our approved color palette. The dark blue is called Deep Blue, and the light blue is called Sky Blue.
Okay, what was that? Deek?
Super original.
Deep.
Deep blue.
Oh, okay, deep blue. All right, so people ask and say, hey, that's deep blue, not just blue. Thank you, appreciate it. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. Council White.
Okay, I'm ready. So first of all, let me tell you up front, I'm not colorblind, but if you ask my daughter and wife,
Lloyd, I think your mic's off.
Oh, and I had a great joke there. First of all, I'm not colorblind, but if you ask my wife and daughter, they'll tell you I'm just as bad as being colorblind. So the colors look fine. And I'd agree with any changes you want to make to color. The question I had, you had mentioned elevated. I didn't see that on the artwork. Is elevated, the word elevated on the artwork, or is it just the design is elevated?
So elevated would just be the city's tagline, so we would not associate that directly with transit.
Okay, and You know, we tried our best, again, a few years ago, to work together with banning, but I have to admit, just this week, I was driving behind a Pass Area Transit bus, and I just couldn't wait to get rid of the Pass Area Transit logo on their buses more than ours, because I just want people to know that that's not one of our buses. So I'm very excited about moving forward on this. And you're saying that we need to be acting in sync with banning. Is that both the logo change as well as the schedule, the route schedules, or is it just, are you just talking about the route scheduling?
No, I was just talking about the refresh, the branding.
Okay.
I think we agree with banning staff that what's best for the passengers now is if we pull this trigger somewhat relatively close, whether it's the same day or the same week, because they need to see the separation and not a new transit operator coming into town and confusing them even more. So they're used to the Pass Transit logo on all buses in the Pass area. So if we do this right, they'll know that the two agencies are operating separately and that Pass Transit has gone away.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is a good job. I mean, the design and everything is very good. My quick comment on this one here, I just like to you have a fixed route. It's a different design, and also compared to commuter. Is that to identify the bus on the route? So
yes, that is correct. We in the transit world like the commuter link buses to be different because they do go on the freeway, and when passengers are standing at a transit center such as Walmart, you need to visually be able to see the bus, the regional buses approaching as compared to the inner city buses. And so that is common for the commuter link buses that travel from city to city on the freeway to be somewhat a little bit different, but still in line with the theme of the logo.
very good. That's great job. I mean, the design. I just like to. That would be nice to see. The commuter in there, and then that's on red. And that would be nice to experiment if there's a green in there. I mean, instead of red, change it to green. I don't know what will be the effect on the bus on this. That's the way I see it. So that will be more visible and more up on the road. That's my comment on this. But perfectly designed, color is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Liz. That's great. Need a motion?
Mayor, I'll move to approve the attached artwork as Transit's official logo and branding campaign.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Okay, let's move
Thank
on.
you.
Thank you. Item number
Great job.
16. Beaumont Police Department proposal for a reserve officer program. Staff report. Liz. Is that Liz or Chief? Chief.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Okay. Oh. Go
We're
ahead.
excited to be before you this evening to discuss with you and the council about the police department's next endeavor to accomplish a few tasks. One is to grow our community involvement into a tighter relationship, to supplement sworn staffing, and to give those persons an opportunity to volunteer within the police department that meet the rigid requirements that our full-time police officers can meet. And so, as the staff report says, reserve police officers, they're an integral part of police agencies. They don't supplant sworn staffing, but they do supplement. And so I laid out here in the staff report the governing authorities in the penal code for reserve police officers and What is the training is POST. As you know, POST is Peace Officer Standards and Training. It's California standards. And so what you can be comfortable with is, as the police department's continuously grown and we've gotten much better at what our mission is and our purpose and engaging in the community and our task forces, what we found is that we still need additional support assistance within the ranks. And so most police officers, reserve police officers are non-salaried. So in here you'll see that I put that they're unpaid. Now, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't receive any sort of compensation. Typically, you're going to have a uniform compensation. You may have a court stipend in case they have to volunteer. These reserve officers have full-time jobs. Many of them are professionals in their respective professions, but they have a desire to give back to their community in the form of this type of service. And so those matters are still to be worked out exactly, but a uniform allowance, a court stipend would definitely be part. Another example may be an event such as the Cherry Festival, where, as you know, the Cherry Festival and the high school graduation and certain community events overlap in this town, and it stretches our resources. And so instead of, they would, for example, could pay the city, we would assign a reserve officer. The reserve officer may receive just an hourly compensation, less than a police officer because they don't accrue benefits and overtime. Other than that, they are non-salaried, no benefits in those regards. And so, again, when you look at what a level 1 reserve officer can accomplish, I happen to have been a level 1 reserve police officer with the city of Redlands before going full-time. I did that for about 13 months. It was a great way to, as you say, get my foot in the door, get to know the community, get to know the police department. They got a good look at me. They didn't have a lot invested as far as, I had a full background, a psych, a medical, I had everything except the compensation. But in there, we had a mutual relationship. I was hired, and I saw many different type of reserve officers in that time. Some, like I mentioned, were teachers or managers, and they didn't want to become full-time police officers. And you'll probably see that more now, so in this current climate than maybe in other times. And then there's other reserve officers as well. So another type of level 1, which we're not coming before council tonight, is a type of level 1 where if they've completed the academy, and then they come on board, and then they receive 400 hours of field training officer program, they would be able to patrol as a solo officer. But that would be by city resolution. We don't have any reserve officers, so 400 hours of training, we'd be a year or so away on the best case. So if we examine it and we determine we have that kind of reserve talent, we may come back. But in this case, our level 1 reserve officers would either ride with a police officer, they may be at the crime scene or a traffic collision, just blocking traffic as our volunteers do. But in this case, they have the authority of a police officer, which sometimes helps, especially on major intersections. Say First and Beaumont, 6 and Beaumont, it helps to put a police officer there. In this case, they would be a reserve police officer. And then the other type is a level 2 reserve officer. And so this would be somebody that would either ride with an officer, but most commonly would have station duties, like running our fleet program, our patrol fleet, maybe looking at cold cases. There's a lot of talented folks who retired out of law enforcement, but they still want to give back. They can look at some of our older cases, or maybe even some of our misdemeanor cases that your detectives just don't have the time to give those attention because of the felony caseload. And so these are folks who love to serve and gladly do these tasks. And so, certainly a question, we've been talking about this quite often since mid-year, about the qualifications of a reserve police officer. Again, they're the same as a full-time police officer. Full background, fingerprint, psychological evaluation, and medical evaluation. And of course, now they'll also be examined for a bias in their background, which I'll talk about later in our legislative update. But all of your new hires will be examined for any sort of bias in their mentality or thinking process. And so as you can see here, it takes a lot of hours, a lot of training to become a certified level 1 reserve officer. And so they constantly will, your current police officers attend what is called trimester training or continuing professional training, CPT. Our reserve officers will attend with the police officers. That's 3 times a year. And after a 2-year period, they've met all their post mandates for continuous training. They'll receive other training by us as well, but that's their required training. And as you can see, that's governed by the Penal Code 13519.4F, so there's no, we didn't get to it, we'll get to it. The fiscal impacts, again, there's some hiring, some backgrounds, some uniforms. I see to get this program up and running, since we didn't budget for it in this fiscal year, we'd use some restricted funds with asset forfeiture, get this program up and running, and then we could easily absorb that moving forward into our fiscal budget. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let me go on public comments on here. Nicole, if there's any.
I have no written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
I do not have any callers on the line either.
Okay, very good. Council discussion. Anyone? Let me look on the screen. Oh, go ahead, Council Julio Martinez, you go first, and then Nancy.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Hello, Chief.
Evening.
So a couple of quick questions. First of all, comment that I think it's an awesome idea. I think it's a great idea that we try to supplement our force. I think it'll be justice to our PD, and I like how you emphasize the training that they'll have to have in order to come aboard. So I agree with all that. A couple of quick questions as my clock goes off in the background. So the liability, I was concerned about liability, but I think I'm a little bit more eased now knowing that they're going to have the training that they're going to have, and that you're going to go through the hiring process and tenses that you stated. So, and once you kind of outline what their duties could be from the level 1 and level 2, I think I'm more comfortable with that. So that was a concern of mine, but I think I'm eased on that. So I appreciate you clarifying that. And I appreciate you clarifying the hiring rigor that you have, that you're about to implement. So the screening and so forth, I think is critical. And we had talked about that on one of your other presentations about how you thought that hiring was so important. Question on the firing end though, if you do get somebody in that's not working out, is it going to be difficult to remove them? Do they follow like the same type of protocol as a regular or a full-time officer, or is it just a contract like temporary where you can let go probationary at any time? How does it work to remove?
Yep, great question. And so as any of our volunteers, they serve at will and at the pleasure of the police chief. So they don't have a property interest in their volunteer status. And so if we miss the mark somewhere, we see personality trait, we see some other perhaps unbecoming attitude, we can dismiss.
Okay. And have you got input from the POA? Do they have comments on this idea?
Absolutely. And so they support because, as I mentioned, we do not use reserve officers to supplant. And so they understand that we're funded for a certain number of positions. This is going to augment their abilities to actually be more task focused. Example, crime scenes, traffic, major traffic collision scenes, some station duties. As I've mentioned, all of our staff actually wears multiple hats. So as much help as we can bring in is going to take the load off of them.
And are these officers, are they entitled to join POA, or are they in a different class because they're volunteer or at will?
Right, so they're not permitted to join the POA. They're not paid employees. There is a California Reserve Police Officers Association, but that's more of a membership for training or some sort of, they have an option to buy like a legal protection program in case they get named in a suit as well. But I didn't join it when I was a reserve. You're pretty much almost safeguarded from getting some of those duties where you're not going to be interviewing a suspect or getting tied up in court. We really try to give them auxiliary duties.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chief. Well, again, I want to thank you for having that other thinking out of the box idea and trying to come up with fresh ideas to help improve our public safety. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Go ahead, Council Carroll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. You've outlined this really, really well. You've done a great job of that. And I think the program, seeding the police force this way, is a really, really good approach. I do have a couple of questions. One is absorbing and how many of these volunteers that you're thinking of bringing in, and what would be the timeline on that? Because, you know, if you bring in a large number too quickly, then I'm concerned about the balance of how much attentiveness the current police force is going to be able to give to bring these people through an adequate personal training program.
Yes, absolutely. And so, like anything, if we were to get the application out through HR, if you closed it near the end of the year, I mean, you look at the delay of holidays, time to interview, then you look at the 3 to 4 months background. You know, we don't see a quick turnaround as far as an influx of these volunteers. Secondly, it's tough recruiting full-time officers. You understand the sentiment and the culture right now, and so to find the ones that want to come and work for free, it's going to be difficult. But we would have a cap. I got to tell you, I haven't had a concrete cap, but I could see it depending on where we could put a few of the level 2s to help with station duties, and then a few out with the officers. Somewhere around 8 would be about a ballpark number I would be comfortable with. But again, as we're still hiring full-time officers, they always take priority over reserves. They're always going to be with our field training officers first. So as far as reserve coming on and saying, hey, I'd like to get the full FTO program because someday I want to be solo, that's going to take a backseat to our hiring goals. And so they'll just be placed with a senior officer. It does not count towards their FTO program, but they are supervised by one of our sworn professionals.
Okay, thank you, Chief. One other quick question too. You did mention background, and you do such a great job of hiring. We've got such a strong community police force. Does this present a different hiring challenge for you? Because when you bring in a regular officer, they've already been in the role, sometimes in another community, and you have a good feel for how they've held up under the stress, the demand, and the nuances of being a good community police officer. Is this going to be a different kind of challenge for you to know that you're bringing in the right people?
I don't see the benchmarks of our standards being the challenge. I see the recruiting is the potential challenge, the hurdle. That's where we're excited to get started on it so that we can set some reasonable goals of staffing the reserve officer program. But keep in mind too, if you're a reserve let's say, a lot of folks are moving to Beaumont. We're still growing so fast. And if you're a reserve and you're not being compensated and you're driving an hour plus to volunteer, but then you learn that your local police department has a reserve officer program, we're going to hope to grab a few of those folks from those other departments like we do with our full-timers too. So, the recruitment strategy will be the challenge, but not holding the standard of the organization.
All right, good. Thank you.
Very good. Council White?
Most of my questions have been answered. A couple quick ones. When you were in Redlands, how many reserve officers did they have at that when you were there?
So if I remember right, probably somewhere around 6 or 7.
Okay.
And again, there was a mix of 1 or 2 that just worked in the bureau, didn't go in the field. There was a couple like me who were young and wanted a full-time job, and then there was a few, like I mentioned, a general manager at a car dealership, a vice principal, folks that were professionals, but just wanted to give back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also touched on something I was going to ask you. If you do have an example of a reserve officer that's already a reserve officer somewhere else and wants to transfer here because of the scenario you put out there, does that expedite their hiring process? Is it faster? Or are they going to take just as long to bring someone like that online as it would be brand new?
Well, so it could be shorter, it could be longer. So, for example, let's say they went to college out of state or they had out-of-state residencies. Those backgrounds always take longer than California residents that have been here their whole life. But we're going to do a thorough background. In fact, so if they've been a reserve for anything longer than a year, you're starting over anyways as far as post is concerned.
Okay.
But since we don't know them, they get the full background. But on an example, if we already had a reserve officer at Beaumont PD who wanted to go full-time, then we just refresh anything that we need to refresh, and then that is quickly expedited. And that's why it's such a great recruitment tool for us, for those who have gone to the academy, but let's say we may not have an open full-time position just yet, but they come on as a reserve, and then we have an opening, you can move them probably within about 30 days or so.
Okay, and that sort of feeds into my last question, which was, you will have then a sort of a structured promotion / transitional program to try and bring the right ones into, the ones that make, that want to do it like you were suggesting.
Right, and so as this council is very familiar with our cadet program, we've hired 3 police officers out of our cadet program, and they're unarmed, they're civilians. Now, imagine that we get a look at these individuals, but now they're armed. We get to see how they treat people with that kind of authority. We make sure they fit into our motto and our mission of providing public safety in this community. Yeah, so we really think this is going to be a great tool for us.
So would a cadet transition into a reserve officer waiting for a position on the force, or does it go the other way around?
Well, no, so cadets, you age out at 23.
23, okay.
Reserve police officers, you have to be a minimum of 21.
Okay.
Just like a police officer. So if a cadet wanted to become a reserve officer and went through the academy, they could do that. They got to put themselves through in that case. But we may find still, we have cadets that are, like we have Officer Christofferson, as you know, and he was an Eagle Scout and a cadet and an explorer here. We hired him as a cadet and sponsored him through the academy. We wouldn't need to get much more of a look at him. He had geared his whole life to public service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a great program also. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mike, you're okay? Oh. Mike,
Yes,
you're okay?
It's a great idea. It's a great program. And we can use as many programs that feed our police force as possible. So great job, Chief.
Thank you.
Very good. No, that's a great program in here. My quick question on this is the retired police officer coming from other counties or other cities. on this, being a volunteer or a level 1 or level 2 on this reserve officer, are they going to be, armed, or what kind of arms, if they do be accepted or something? I mean, if I've been asked on those, retired people that who move over here and they want to volunteer, no cost, no nothing, they just to do something. I mean, but they're police officers.
Yeah. So what I've seen is the police officers put in a full career and retired.
Yeah.
That want to give back. They're not going to want to be a level 1 out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They did their time. They made it. What they want to do is they moved here, let's say, to Beaumont, and they want to help us.
Mm-hmm.
They want to look at some cases. They want to, like I say, maybe handle the patrol fleet for us. Maybe they were logistic guys or gals. Perhaps they want to help with our detectives, crimes against children. There's just a lot that can be
Okay.
done, and they're talented and they're trained, and you really pick them up for next to nothing, and all you're giving them is an invite back into public service.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, that answered that. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Anything else, council? If not, this will be, receive and file. Do you need a motion?
Yes. To receive and file.
Receive and file. A motion. Okay. Now, let's move on. Item number 17 on this. Thank you, Chief. Authorize Fourth Amendment to the City Manager Employment Agreement on this. Carrie, staff report.
So,
Or-
Your Honor,
Yeah.
Honor. So I think Mr. Parton is going to step out on this side and recuse himself since it involves him.
Okay. Very good. We'll see you, Todd.
Let me know when he's gone.
Now he's gone.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
You have before you what Mr. Pinckney and I have prepared is the Fourth Amendment to the City Manager's Employment Agreement. It's my understanding that he's engaged in labor negotiations with the council as a board as well as a small group, and the result of those negotiations is reflected in this Fourth Amendment to his contract. There's no salary increase associated with this contract. The resulted changes were to provide an extended term and an increase in the severance package alone. No fiscal impact to the current fiscal year. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have in regards to the prepared documents in front of you.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any public comments on here, Nicole?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do you have anyone on the line?
Oh, nobody on the line, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. Council discussion, if there's any? Okay, Council White?
Carrie, it might help, just for the public, if you could explain, or maybe if Mr. Pinckney is better to do that, the change to the severance package. Basically, we're just adding additional times, and John, you've given us some understanding of way the law works, and I think that'd be helpful to get that comment here.
Sure. So under California law, you can have in a contract like this a severance provision that allows for up to 18 months of severance, or the remaining term that's left under the contract, whichever is less. So the way this provision works, previously it was a 9-month severance provision. It's been changed to 12 months, and under the government code, what he would be entitled to would be 12 months severance or whatever amount of time remains under the contract. So for example, if a day after you entered into this, you decided to terminate without cause, then the city would pay a 12-month severance. If there were 3 months remaining under the contract term, and future city council terminated the city manager at that time without cause, then they wouldn't pay the 12-month severance. They would only pay the remaining 3 months left under the contract. Does that make sense?
That's, yes, that's perfect, and I think we all understand that. I just wanted to make that part of the record. So when
Okay.
you say you're increasing the severance package, we're basically extending 9 months to 12 months as far as the most that the city would be on the line for. And other than that, I'm very excited to extend the contract for an additional 3 years, and I really appreciate Mr. Pardon's approach and understanding, that we have a lot of work to do, especially with what's gone on this year, and it's going to be a difficult challenge to meet all of the financial obligations and negotiate with our labor units and all of the contracts that we have to work on. And I look forward to having Mr. Pardon leading that effort. So I'm all in favor, and I think we got a great bargain for an additional 3 years. Thanks.
Very good. Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem Mike Lara, go ahead.
Yeah, as Councilmember White had indicated, that Todd's approach to this contract was, I think, was great. I really like the leadership role that he took. He did not request any salary increase with this negotiation. That was not something that we brought up. That was something that he did not ask for. And that just kind of shows the type of leader that he is. He understands the kind of situation that the city is currently in financially, and is leading by example as he has since we brought him on board. So again, just thanks to Todd and his leadership. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Council Martinez?
Yeah, just a quick comment as well. I just want to also echo everyone's sentiment, and I just want to address the public directly to let them know that the contributions that the city manager has made to the progress of our city, those contributions are innumerable. And, I want to assure the public that we have a manager that has vision, has knowledge, and has expertise. And, that's even more critical, as Councilmember White mentioned, as we go into unknown economic times and challenges coming ahead, that we have a person of this quality at the helm. And I want to thank him for what he's done, and I want to ensure the public that we have a leader that is on top of his game. And I thank him for that. So that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll just go ahead and, echo everybody here. And I really appreciate his leadership on managing the city and the staff. I mean, he knows how to run the whole city and the whole staff in here. So I really appreciate him, and I'm glad that there's an extension up to October 2026 on his contract. And I think the city is looking forward on that too. Thank you. Go ahead, John. If not, I need a motion to
Mayor,
authorize this. Go ahead.
Authorize the mayor to execute the Fourth Amendment to the city manager employment agreement.
I'll second that.
Very good.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. We have to give him a call.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Carrie. Is Bronco playing? He's watching probably. Okay, let's move on item number 18, establishment of City Beaumont COVID-19 Household Assistance Grant Program. Staff report. Todd Pardon, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a very exciting report for you. I imagine I can get through it in about 2 or 3 hours.
So before you start, I just want to tell you that you got another 3 years with us.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Council. Thank you for that support. This is my COVID hairdo, so I am planning to try to get this resolved someday soon. So back in August, we did do a budget amendment for 2021, and we did use those funds to establish our City of Beaumont COVID relief program. We had a series of different programs that were involved in that budget amendment. One of those, or I guess the two kind of anchors to that local program was the Business Assistance Program, which we've had our first round of applications, and we are now working to issue about 24 grants out to qualified businesses in our community. So that's a $140,000 allocation. This is a $100,000 allocation that we set up for households that could demonstrate that they had felt the fiscal impacts to their household income directly related to COVID-19 impacts. So with that, we talked about really two types of households that we need to bifurcate through the program. So we have households that could have only one member in that household, which could qualify for a $500 grant. And then we had households that would have two or more people that would then qualify for a $1,500 grant application. So with that, we had some discussion in our last draft when we presented this with regard to what the income level should be. So this program that's presented to you tonight is looking at an income level, household income level that's 80% of the median Riverside County household income level. That's consistent with what some other cities are doing, and specifically, I looked at the City of Riverside Rental Assistance Program, and they'd had a threshold at 80%. Now, that income stream or the income is total income, so we're looking at all types of income, whether they could be alimony, they could be child support, they could be other kind of programs that are coming in. So we would look and total all that various sources of income in to then evaluate where they were. So it would be a position where they need to provide that. So the income also account towards all household members who were 18 years of age or older. So that's the income that would apply. So if you're 16 or 17 and you're working part-time or you're doing some things like that, we wouldn't calculate that into the household income. It's going to be just for the adults as we defined at that 18-year level. So if this program is approved tonight by council, our plan would be to, in the first couple weeks of November, get the application process started, and then we'd be looking at grant awards not being made in October, they'd be made in December. So I apologize for the typo in my staff report. So with that, the staff report does have a little introductory section, which kind of outlines all those different things. And then you see the application form in the back that just calls for the specific information that we're looking for. So with that, council, will turn it over for discussion and direction.
Very good. First is there any public comments on this item? Nicole?
I have no written comments. Carrie, do you have anyone on the line?
There is no one on the line.
Very good. Council discussion. It's open. Questions? Comment? Getting done. Oh, there's Councilor Martinez.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, we've been down this road before and we discussed the importance of the program. And, we got pretty good response with the business assistance program. And, I'm hoping to get equally as response in this program as well. So again, I just wanted to thank council for this initiative. I think it's going to be very helpful to the community. And we went all over the specifics earlier, so I'm not going to go through those again. But I just want to, again, show my support for this program and its notion. So thank you.
Okay. Very good. I think we're good. I mean, no, first of all, I mean, I really like this kind of program. Thank you for presenting this, and I think it will help a lot of our residents on this kind of program. Thank you. I need a motion on this item number 18.
Mayor, I'd like to move to establish the Household Assistance Grant Program as presented.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you. Item number 19, review of local emergency declaration established via the adoption of City of Beaumont Resolution Number 2020-07, adopted in March 17, 2020. Staff report, Mr. Pardon.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've seen this, I think, a couple times. So this, I think, is the third review that we would have of this resolution that established the emergency declaration. We last presented this to City Council on August the 4th of 2020, and we're bringing it back to you again tonight for additional consideration. If this resolution is maintained, we would be coming back to you again at your first meeting in December to review once again. In looking at the basis for which this original declaration was adopted, we were at the very beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we felt we had a need to be able to have the ability to provide some sort of potential emergency responses to that. We do still have the same conditions that are there. FEMA and Cal OES looks at the existing COVID-19 situation as an ongoing situation. So as we're headed into this potential next upsurge coming into flu season, they are also looking at that as a continuation of the existing emergency that's there. So we are currently operating under a national emergency declaration. When the president declared that, that basically covered the state's requirements to declare their own emergencies, although many states did. So through that presidential declaration, you got the states that have emergency declarations. You have, I think, 32 different tribal organizations also that are also covered under that emergency declaration. So our local emergency declaration really allows us to stay in sync with the national and state emergencies that are out there. So, so with that, Mayor, I turn it back to you and council for discussion and direction.
Very good. And is there any public comments on this, Nicole?
I have no written comments. Carrie, anyone on the line?
I still have no one on the line, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. Council discussion on this item?
Mayor, I have a couple comments.
Go ahead, Council White.
So the federal and state emergency aid that is coming through as a result of the fact that we have declared a local emergency. Is that correct?
Yes, so, and we did try to reaffirm that with FEMA again. And the FEMA interpretation is that for the city to qualify as a local agency for reimbursement under the FEMA program, that we need to have an emergency declaration is the interpretation that FEMA staff has provided to us.
Okay, and is there standards and definition of what that local emergency declaration has to entail?
No, I don't believe there is.
Okay. Because I sort of disagree with this comment here that this is due to the fact that there have been no significant changes in the original conditions. I mean, I remember when we originally declared this back in, I believe, April. Was it April or?
Yes, it was March.
March, okay.
Yeah.
We really had no idea what we were facing. And so we do have a lot more understanding of what we're facing. We recognize that there's ebb and flows, and we originally flatten the curve so that our health industry would not be overwhelmed. And, you know, at some point, we need to start looking at what we can do to help our businesses and associations get back on their feet and get a lot more of our people back to work and our schools back opened. So my concern, I watched the county supervisors meeting today, and the county supervisor, and here's another thing that's changed, is at the time, the original conditions, the state emergency declaration, the county had some requirements, some orders that they had put in place. And I think we learned a couple weeks ago when they first took a run at trying to move our county forward. They announced that all of the county's health restrictions had been lifted. And then today, when they went to pass their latest plan, 4 of the 5 of the county supervisors indicated that there really wasn't anything for the county to lift. So everyone was there speaking on behalf of their situations and asking the county to lift the restrictions that would allow businesses and organizations to open and to get people back to work. And the county made it clear that they don't have anything they can lift. So basically, we are not under any kind of county restrictions or county orders now. It's not to say that our businesses need to, understand the risks if they open. If you have a license with a state agency, you risk losing your license. Even if you don't have a license and you're a business owner and you have employees that are being asked to work and they don't want to, they can file OSHA complaints. And so as a business owner, you are at risk for that too. And those are decisions that business owners need to be made. One of the county supervisors made it clear that this was going to continue, and there was no end in sight until our governor is made aware that at some point this has to end. In other states, there have been some successful lawsuits. Pennsylvania is one of them, where the justice came back and said that what they were doing was unconstitutional. I think what our governor's doing to our state is also unconstitutional, especially with the latest requirements that I think it will prevent a lot of counties from opening areas. Counties that may be meeting all the requirements and all the numbers, with the exception of some small pocketed areas or other areas that are not meeting those numbers. Those counties are now going to be restricted from moving forward and opening. So the argument that the county supervisors made was, number one, don't come back to us if you get sued because of OSHA or if you lose your license. And I think the city takes the same role. We don't have a role in defending those kinds of things. But I think at some point, local leaders need to stand up and be heard. And so my concerns are that, until someone makes an effort to call our governor on what's happening, it's not going to get done. And I would like to ask the council to consider that we just bring a discussion as to whether we have standing, what liabilities we have, whether or not there are other cities or other local agencies, maybe even our own county. You could tell today that at least 4 of the county supervisors are as frustrated as many of us are. So I would like the council to consider taking this into closed session and get some legal advice from our city attorney, and to see what options we have, if any, to start standing up for our businesses and our citizens who are struggling, and they are going through a lot of welfare issues, and businesses are shutting, businesses are closing, and I think at some point we as local leaders need to at least look and see if there's something that we can do or difference that we can make. So I'm off my soapbox now, but I would like the council to consider at least discussing this in closed session with no requirements. Just let's get the facts and have a good discussion. Thank you.
Very good. Hey, John, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I don't offer an opinion one way or the other at this point in time. of whether the council should meet in closed session. If the council has a desire to do that, I'm happy to meet with the council in closed session and discuss the points that Councilmember White has raised. But just by way of information on this topic, Councilmember White mentioned, some risks to the businesses. There has been an uptick nationally in litigation against businesses. We have even seen that here in Riverside County. The type of claims, are across the board. OSHA, PAGA type claims, which are private attorney general claims brought by employees where there are OSHA violations. There are OSHA whistleblower type claims that are being brought against employers. Believe it or not, even age discrimination claims by older employees, where an employer is concerned that, an older employee may be more vulnerable due to the risks associated with COVID, and either lay them off or not have them actually come to the office or to the workplace. And so there have been age discrimination type claims that have arisen out of that. Employees generally are, if they get ill, they're generally limited to workers' comp claims. But there have been some, and probably the most well-publicized case where a public nuisance type lawsuit has been brought by employees was brought against McDonald's for allegedly maintaining a public nuisance by not adhering. Allegedly, what they claimed was that some McDonald operator wasn't adhering to COVID safeguards. And then customers, of course, of a business that come in, if they get sick, they could potentially bring a lawsuit for negligence against a business that's not following state restrictions. So what are the rules that are in place right now that affect businesses in the city of Beaumont? The city of Beaumont, by way of its emergency declaration, did not restrict, nor did it authorize operation of businesses. So we're not regulating that. The emergency declaration that you passed, or the resolution that you passed on March 17th provides that, let's go to the language here. The city council hereby declares the local emergency by way of this resolution and by way of authorizing the city manager to execute and issue the attached declaration of the existence of a local emergency. And then you also provided that the city manager is authorized to make any amendments and or modifications to the attached declaration he deems necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public and issue further orders as necessary or appropriate. And then if you go to the actual declaration that was signed by the city manager, it essentially authorizes the city manager to take actions that might be necessary due to COVID-related issues by supplies, equipment, what have you. So we don't have currently in the city of Beaumont a city-imposed regulation on the operation of business. And as Councilmember White indicated, the county health official had issued orders early on during the COVID taking root, restricting certain types of business activities, but the County Board of Supervisors rescinded those. And so now we're all operating under the state rules, and the states adopted the 4-tier program, which has the most restrictive tier is purple, then there's red, then there's orange, and then there's yellow. And currently the county is under the red tier. Previously we were under purple, and some of the types of, and you probably already all remember this, but under the purple tier, places of worship could only operate outdoors. Movie theaters could only operate outdoors. Gyms and fitness centers only outdoors. Restaurants only outdoors. And under the current red tier system, places of worship can have a maximum capacity of 25% or 100 people, whichever is less. The same with respect to movie theaters. Gyms can operate at 10% capacity, and then restaurants at 25% capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. And so that's the rules that we're all operating under right now are the state rules, not county, not city. And then I think also Councilmember White referenced the current program that's in place to move to the next tier, and it's the blueprint for a safer economy, COVID-19 and equity. And in order to advance the next less restrictive tier, depending on a county size, in our case, we're over the 106,000 population mark. So the county would need to meet an equity metric and or demonstrate targeted investment to eliminate disparities in levels of transmission. And the equity metric is to ensure that test positivity rates in the most disadvantaged neighborhoods do not significantly lag behind overall county test positivity rates. And then also the county has to submit a plan that defines its disproportionately impact population, specifies the percent of its COVID-19 cases in these populations, shows that it plans to invest epidemiology and laboratory capacity for prevention and control of emerging infections. So there's these metrics and steps that have to be complied with under this equity approach. So right now, I apologize for repeating, but we, the city, have not imposed any restrictions on businesses, nor authorized them. It's the state that is establishing and enforcing the rules right now. And that's that tier system that I just mentioned.
Very good, John. Thank you. Okay. Further discussion, Council? Anyone? If not, go ahead, Mayor Pro Temp Mike Lara. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Council Member White raises some good points. Without discussing this in too much detail, I would be okay with just to see what our options are or what we have available to us in a closed session agenda item. But with this item that we have before us, I'm prepared to make a motion if nobody else has a comment, Mayor.
Okay.
But
Let me see first. Councilor Martinez, do you have comment? If not, no.
No, I can just mention, Mayor, that, I'm looking forward to our discussion in closed session. So I agree. I think we should probably discuss.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Carroll, comment? You're okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Temp Mike Lara. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the city staff recommends that there be no change regarding the local emergency declaration. This is due to the fact that there have been no significant changes in their original conditions. A state emergency declaration remains in effect, and local emergency declarations help to ensure that Beaumont remains eligible for federal and state emergency aid.
I'll second that.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you. Legislative updates and discussion. Mr. Pard.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think this presentation is going to be brief from my perspective. So early Christmas
Not 2 hours or 3 hours?
No, we'll go quick because we have a very important guest speaker on this agenda tonight, which would be Chief Talese. But with the legislative session concluding in Sacramento, there's really no additional action that's happened on that front. There is some ongoing discussion, obviously, as we know, up in D.C. about whether or not there's going to be another relief package decided upon before the end of this year. So I guess there's some ongoing discussion we'll just stay attuned to. But the most important thing happening legislatively now is what bills had been signed by the governor. And I think most importantly, we had talked about public safety as one of those critical areas. So, Chief, I'd like to turn it to you to kind of walk us through the highlights of where we are.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. what a 2020 for legislation as it pertained to public safety. I'm glad it's over, and we'll look forward to 2021. I wanted to clear up
Sorry.
Senate Bill 145. That's been termed the pedophile bill by the public, and I just wanted to shed a little bit of light on it because it did have some significant support from Cal Chiefs, but it was sponsored by the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and supported by the California District Attorneys Association. What it really did is it put some equality into the discretion of a judge. And so it did not legalize any sort of crime against juveniles. It didn't address any punitive action except, so if you have a minor between the age of 14 and 17 that had what would be normally consensual sex, but they can't be consenting under the concept of their age, the judge can decide on the merits of the case if that person needed to register for life as a sex registrant. And the judge had discretion between a male and a female. What happened in this case with this fix was between a male and a male, then that consensual encounter, if it involved anal sex, they were mandated to make them a sex registrant for life under Penal Code 290. And so it just simply gave the same permissive rights to the judge, whether it's male, female, or male, male, or female, female. And so I just wanted to assure the public that it's not a pedophile bill in those regards. Okay, so we'll just talk about, I'm only talk about one veto. We'll talk about the dead bills. We'll talk about what's been signed. Mental health workers are permitted to respond as emergency mental health crisis workers in collaboration with law enforcement. So we've seen this in some areas of the county. The City of Indio has a grant. Temecula, Marietta share the cost. The City of Riverside and City of Corona has some mental health workers. We are working with our sheriff on a proposal with Riverside County Public Health Department to determine the needs of the pass area and see then if Calamasa, Beaumont, Banning could ride share out with some of these mental health workers. For us, we'd probably put them with our business liaison, community policing officers to work with the homeless. So we're excited about those prospects. I mentioned this earlier, AB 846 will require an evaluation to include bias against race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, religion, disability, or sexual orientation. And so I've already given the approval and signed it with our psychological services to screen all of our current applicants and backgrounds and then our future for this bias. Also, interesting enough, we're required to examine our recruitment and hiring process to make sure we're not emphasizing paramilitary aspects of the job, but the community interaction. So if you had the SWAT vehicle and the guns and everything on your 5x7 card, you need to change that. We don't have those things, so
Okay.
we don't have to change anything. So we're pretty comfortable there. Of not much concern to me, but AB 1185 does allow the County Board of Supervisors to create sheriff oversight boards. So again, not too much there. A very important veto by Governor Newsom was AB 1299. And this was what was going to be referred to as the decertification bill. And what this would have done is if a police officer had left an agency, if they were terminated or they resigned in lieu of a serious investigation, instead of saying, okay, I'll leave, don't conclude it, this would have required us to conclude it, post our findings to California Post. And the governor vetoed it, and I'll read it briefly, why he vetoed this. This bill would require an agency that employs specified peace officers to provide a notification to the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, or POST, when a peace officer is terminated, or if an officer leaves the agency with a complaint, charge, or investigation of a serious nature. This bill would also require said agency to complete the investigation as specified within 1 year and notify POST of its findings. This bill would require POST to make that information available to any law enforcement agency conducting a pre-employment background investigation of the subject of the profile. So a lot of good things in there, actually. And the governor says, I agree with the intent of this legislation. Officers with a history of misconduct should not be able to resign in lieu of termination and simply move to a different department without a completed investigation or file of misconduct. He says, but this bill does not go far enough. I'm concerned this bill will slow momentum for broader decertification measures in future legislative sessions. So the legislature has signaled that it will continue its work on decertification, and he supports that development with a broader approach. I think most police chiefs, we did not like how hastily this was crafted. We're going to work with the governor's office through Cal Chiefs and support, because we agree with the fundamentals here that you should not be able to agency hop if you're, a bad character. The police use of force. This one is rather significant, AB 1506. And this will require the California Department of Justice, upon the request of a law enforcement agency, to review the use of force policy of the agency and make recommendations. That's fine, but this bill is going to require this state prosecutor to investigate incidents of an officer-involved shooting resulting in the death of an unarmed civilian. So the bill would make the Attorney General the state prosecutor unless otherwise specified or named. So they could name a special investigator or prosecutor. And then they got to make a written report and require that the state prosecutor to post any reports made on a public internet website. So when it talks about it, so if we were to engage in a deadly use of force with an unarmed person, and then the obvious question is, who's unarmed? And so in reading that, it's obviously if they have a firearm or something that's capable of firing a shot, or if they have certain knives, a billy, so I'm thinking a billy club, but that's how the language is written, and then or a blackjack. So they pulled some old terminology out, but so in there is, for example, a replica. Not in there is a replica firearm. So if they pull a simulated firearm on the officer, it is not they're considered unarmed. The state prosecutor, the Attorney General's office will come in. So I couldn't, we'll work with the law, is bottom line. We'll work with the law as it's written. Again, AB 1945 just includes public safety dispatchers as the emergency services first responders, so we were pretty excited for that. Law enforcement uniforms, we cannot wear a military uniform that is the uniform of the United States Armed Forces or state active militia. So won't have a big impact on us unless the military changes to wool PD blues. Then we'll have to change once more, but we should be fine there. And the big one that was vetoed, there's two vetoes, and we're very thankful to the governor's office for this. Senate Bill 629 was for public peace, but media access. And what that was going to do, it was a loosely defined media access, giving them, all the access to closed areas during protests, and then created a misdemeanor and or felony penalty for officers obstructing or interfering with the media. Again, it didn't define who credentializes the media. They would have been able to go anywhere they wanted during a protest and interfere with us. And if we would have interfered, we could have been charged. So rightfully, the governor vetoed that. And so that summarizes your 2020 public safety legislation. With that, any questions?
Very good. Good report. Question, Council White.
Just wait for 2021. But So I want a little clarification on the one where the state attorney general would come in. So that would be establishing someone from the state that would overrule the local district attorney and sheriff's investigations and would not, I mean, in other words, we as a county lose the impact that our elected officials give us as far as investigations and things like that.
And it's gonna, yeah, so, and again, and this is an important part, it begins July 1st of 2023. The reason for that is when we reported, so for example, the Attorney General's office reached out to me, said, what does it cost the Beaumont Police Department to investigate officer-involved shootings? It's about $40,000 a shooting. So last year, 2019, County of Riverside in totality had 26 officer-involved shootings for one county. It's a large county, but one. So you can imagine now that cost. The Attorney General's office is not staffed to handle this. So my understanding is Cal Chief is going to continue to work with the governor's office to probably have some trailer bills or redefine it, because right now they are just not anywhere near equipped to take this on. And again, we don't know to what degree will they reinvestigate. Will they just review what's been investigated, or will they investigate?
And I'm worried because the labor department, the state labor department went and contracted out their responsibilities for investigating labor laws, which created PAGA, which made an incentive for people, attorneys, right, to come in and go after businesses. And I envisioned this as, like you said, the state is, you made clear in your presentation that they can designate somebody else to go out and take this role. And what is going to be the motivation of that role? And we as a county are not going to have the ability to say, we got this one.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct. They will be able to supersede the district attorney's authority.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Council? Anyone? We're good? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Todd. Okay. Council reports. Council Carol, start from you.
A very brief RTA meeting last week and another one tomorrow, but nothing much to report to council on last week's meeting. And, I'll get you next meeting about the ones that come this week.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mike Lara.
Yes, had a WRCOG meeting Monday. One of the things that they had mentioned that I found interesting was that June was the highest month for fees collected this year. And 58% of the fees were for single-family residential dwelling units. So they still seem to be fairly strong in June. And I just wanted to share that information. That's all I have. Mayor.
Great, very good. Thank you. Council Martinez, Julio.
Yes, so as a part of the BAP, the Business Assistance Program Ad Hoc Committee, Mayor and I reviewed some of the, all of the applications that were submitted. And I am glad to say that I agreed with the direction of the staff on the ones that were approved and not approved. And again, thank the council for approving the housing assistance, the community assistance, household assistance program. So we'll be looking forward to reviewing those applications. I attended RCA yesterday. We had a very brief discussion about that possible change in management, possible agency management change. I'm having a discussion with the director Friday so I can get a little bit more information because I'm still not getting what I want. And I'm very concerned about that. So I'll be getting some more information there, and we'll see in the future talks, I'll see if Councilmember White has got any more information as well. And of course, we concluded our meeting with the species of the month. which is the migrating bird named the black swift, a bird that we are trying to help habitat preservation as it migrates and nests in the mountainsides. So thank you for that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Lloyd White.
I don't have anything to report as far as meetings go. I want to take this opportunity to reach out to Mr. Martinez. I think you and I need to start communicating together on where we are with the two agencies that we are representing the city for, because I think we need to be proactive as a council and come to the council at the right time so that you and I are not in a position where we haven't fully discussed the approach, the pros and cons of moving forward. And if that means we have to work with our directors to get some information to our council, I think we need to work in a manner that, you and I are on the same page, and that we're coming to council to discuss this before you and I are in a position where we have to make a vote that makes a change. So I think we should, maybe Todd can help us coordinate that just to get that going so we can put that in as part of the whole agenda package in the future as well. So that's all.
Mayor, may I respond quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
So, Councilmember White, do you think we should request to see if an ad hoc committee is required so that we can sit down and discuss, and then for the public knows it's just us two discussing, or do you?
Yeah, that's by asking Todd to sort of facilitate that. He can talk to John and figure out what we need to do. But I know the question came up to me earlier last week. Are you guys ready to bring this to the council yet? And I don't know that we are, but we need to be ready as soon as we can be ready.
Okay, we'll coordinate then. If you don't think we need an ad hoc official committee, then we can just coordinate through, I guess, Todd and discuss.
Yeah, as long as it's not a majority of the council,
Right.
It's not a Brown Act body.
Right. So, okay, then we'll get together, Councilmember White, and we'll discuss some times to talk. You bet.
All right. Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Mayor.
Yep. I mean, mine is the report on the SCAG. They approved the Connect SoCal on that. So there's some fundings in there. I did, communicating with Mr. Pardon here on those grants. So we'll work out on that, and hopefully it will benefit some majority. It's the Beaumont and also the region in here, which is Calamasa and Banning, so we could work together on this. Now, on the social thing on the city, which is I really very thankful on Elizabeth and Ashley and Heather putting together some of the activities, even though we have the pandemic and everything in here. Just like we just finished the Silly Walk. I mean, they did pretty good on that. And then we have the Lego contest, which is very good. I mean, the community is really reaching out and say they wish that they have more on this. I mean, in the future, especially if the pandemic still, locked down a little bit on this. And then, there's still coming up on the park and recreation. I mean, the trunk or treat, drive-through. That will be on the Noble Creek, and putting this, doing advertising on this, so the city, our citizens know what's going on this. And I like to really, I attended the Veterans Foreign War on, that was a Sunday, post 233, and that was a good anniversary of the 75th anniversary on them. And they were very thankful on providing them the site in there. And they said, they're very thankful to the city and providing that site on that. I like to, convey that to you. Other than that, we'll move on the economic development report. Mr. Pardon?
Yes, so the the RFP deadline for the psychographic analysis and the sales tax recruitment strategy has been concluded. We have 7 applications that have been submitted that Mr. Wierzinski has and is starting to review. So we'll bring a little committee together. We had anticipated having a member, at least one member of our Economic Development Committee also part of that review team to look at those proposals. But I will say that they include some of our national consultants that do that work. I did talk to some regional consultants, and some of whom did not apply or submit RFPs, and they said that they are extremely busy in that industry right now. So a lot of people are looking at retail and looking at those recruitment analysis. So it's kind of interesting when you look at the economics that are going on out there in across the country, and that industry is really getting busy. So anyway, so hopefully we'll have some results to bring to you guys soon, and we can get that project launched. So
Very good.
that concludes our report.
Very good, sir. Thank you. City Treasurer report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Barry, yeah.
I have nothing to report except our meeting next week for the Finance Audit Committee has been postponed. It is a holiday. I talked with Jeff, and we did not feel there was an adequate amount of material to discuss, so we will postpone till the November meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, City Clerk report. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I just want to repeat my serious concern about having a public hearing on the city's general plan on election night. This document and this plan is one of the most important things in the city's history, and it's certainly one of the most important things that this council will be dealing with during its term. And I would say we ought to be doing everything possible to get the public interested and involved in it. And to have this public hearing on a night when many people are going to be preoccupied with other things like the future of our country, I think not having a special meeting later in the week is a big mistake. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, City Attorney report. Mr.
Nothing
Bigby.
this evening, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you. City Manager still report.
Oh, my.
Yours.
Goodness, I know.
Whoa,
just
you're
what
loaded
you're
tonight, man.
Looking for. So, it was funny. So I think Mr. Martinez said that the endangered species was the black switch, right? Which is a indigenous or is a migratory bird. Well, I just read an article that the Raiders are changing their name to the Las Vegas black switches because they too are migratory and they're nearly endangered. So it seems to be a perfect marriage. So that's crazy how that works.
Pardon at beaumontca.gov.
So anyway, well, gosh.
Okay.
So in the packet this time, and I was thinking about including this in the monthly packets moving forward. So not every meeting, but in the first meeting of the month. It's kind of a recap of where we are with our project schedule. So there's some really good information in there. So I think for the general public, they can always go to those packets and they can look and see where we are on a myriad of things. So anyway, that is there. One of the key questions that I was asked to address for the meeting tonight would be to talk about where we are with the wastewater treatment plant. So the treatment plant, the brine line, if you remember the 23 miles that we constructed has been completed, and we're finalizing the final details, final contract closeouts on those. But the infrastructure is there and available for use. The old sewer plant has been turned off and is in the process of being decommissioned. So the new wastewater treatment plant is operating. So we are going through startup issues with the plant that are not atypical to startups. A lot of people think that starting a sewer plant is flipping a switch or turning a valve and just running sewer through. So there's a lot of things to dial in, and especially we're moving from a tertiary treatment to a membrane treatment system that is way different, and it's a much higher level of operational demands and needs. Our consulting team, has talked about this as probably one of the more complicated startups that they've seen, because we're literally transitioning from one to another. And it's not typical to go to a brand new plant. Usually you're making unit adjustments, or you're making system modifications, in the train, not entirely new train. So anyway, I'm beating that horse to death, but anyway, so we're going through that process. So MBR's there. We're working through those bugs, trying to get the plant fully where we want it to be before we do our final acceptance of all that. The other component of it is our Title 22. So all of our unit pieces are there and installed at the plant. And so again, we're going through some operational parameters to work to get Title 22 ready. We have our revised board order, which commits us to having Title 22 water production capability by the end of November. So we're still on track, and we're moving forward to get that accomplished. So again, that's a brand new process for us, and we're working through. So our staff has been literally in the plant nonstop, pretty much. Thaxton's been getting there 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's not leaving that plant till, some cases 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. So anyway, so our team's working hard to bring all that together. So we have the MOU that we had negotiated with Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District to outline the bones of an agreement to be able to convey our Title 22 water to them. So now that we're nearing completion, we've been coordinating back with Mr. Jaggers and the staff over there. We've had a couple meetings to discuss moving forward with the final contract to bring back to our 2x2 to finally review that, and then ultimately bring that to the board and to the council respectively. So with COVID and with everything that's been going on, we've been delayed in being able to get started on writing that. So the district staff did want to take the lead on putting that initial draft together. So they're working on that. I know Dan is. So we'll continue to bring that forward and hopefully have something for the 2x2 to review before too much longer. So that concludes that part of the report. The other thing I was going to mention is we are looking at those SCAG grants to determine which ones we may qualify, which are applicable to us. Yes. There's some conditions and requirements for those applicability that we're just having to walk through to see what we may be eligible for. Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day, so City Hall is scheduled to be closed for that day, closed for business. And on the general plan public hearings, there are 3 public hearings scheduled. So we do have that one for November the 3rd. There is one public hearing before the Planning Commission the week prior to that. And there's a second City Council public hearing scheduled for the 17th. So there are 3 options for people to be able to come and provide their input at one of those 3 public hearings.
When does the Planning Commission normally meet? What's their regular schedule?
Oh, gosh, I have to go back.
They're
and
the
look, yeah.
second Tuesday of every
But
month.
it's the second Tuesday, and that it looks like the public hearing for the general plan in front of the Planning Commission is
It'll be a
the end of the
special
month.
meeting. Correct. It'll be a special meeting just for
So
that.
it is, so we have that special meeting a week, actually less than a week before the 3rd, and then we have another one, we have one at the City Council on the 3rd, and we have another one on November 17th, so 2 weeks later. So it's 3 meetings in a row.
Yes.
And are they successive? In other words, are we doing something in the first one, then we're going to do a little more in the second one, or are they just 3 general public hearings?
There'll be 3 general public hearings.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, that concludes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Future agendas, items in here. Council, do you have some for future agenda? If none, none? Okay. Hey, our next meeting will be October 20th. That'll be 2020, and I will adjourn this on 9/17. Thank you, everyone.
Very good.
Thank you.
9:17.
9/17.